On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're stepping inside 4 stunning homes that prove style and personality don't have to come with a hefty price tag. Each of these spaces is filled with incredible secondhand finds, DIY magic, and unique treasures that give them a one-of-a-kind charm. First, we'll visit a vibrant townhome where color, nostalgia, and playful thrifted pieces come together in the most delightful way. Next, we step into a Chicago home that feels like a love letter to European elegance, where carefully curated antiques tell a story of history and glamour. Then we head to Minnesota to tour a cozy family home, where a new mom has skillfully layered sentimental decor and vintage gems to create a warm, welcoming space. And finally, we journey to Michigan, where a historic Tudor home is brought to life with a stunning mix of mid-century antique and English country influences, all tied together with a signature touch of green. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Erica and welcome to my home in DFW. Come on in, I'd love to show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Erica Jefferson, but online I go by Erica Nicole. And my passion is creating home decor content. I love DIYs. I mainly focus on thrifting, vintage, estate sales. Like all secondhand is my favorite thing to find. And I create content full time. So right now we're in DFW. I live in the suburbs right outside of Dallas, Texas. And I would say that my style is kind of eclectic. I never can stick to one style. That's kind of my personality though. Like, I don't really have a favorite anything. I just like to mix things that I like and kind of create my own personal style. But I would say a lot of my inspiration comes from like Scandi design. I love color, but I also love simplicity and I love maximalism. So I try to blend all of those things into one and also throw in like vintage and modern. So just a mix of everything that I feel like creates me and my personality. So welcome to my entryway. This is the first room that you see when you walk into my home. And also it's my favorite area of my home because I love vinyls and I love collecting them. I love going to record shops. So I actually found this old newspaper magazine rack. And I found it at Round Top, which is this huge flea market that happens a couple times a year in Round Top, and it's right outside of Austin. And it's really well known. A lot of people know about it. So if you haven't heard about it, you should definitely check it out. It's amazing. And a lot of collectors and designers go there to source pieces. So it's really amazing even just to look. So I got this newsstand for $15. And I decided to use it to store my records, and I really love how it's kind of unexpected and a different use for something that was used in the past for newspapers. And I also have this waterfall table that I use to store my stereo and my speaker. And this is also from a vintage store in Dallas called Lullabies. And it's metal and it's a waterfall style, so I love that it doesn't have sharp edges. And then I also have this beautiful, interesting lamp that I thrifted for $15. I originally thought it was a vase when I walked into the store, and then I saw it had a plug. I was like, no way, I thought that was just like a giant vase. So I really love it, and it creates this really warm, beautiful glow whenever it's turned on. And then I also have my miniature bar cart. It's kind of a space age, which is actually my favorite genre of vintage. I love 70s, 60s, that kind of thing. I love vintage plastic, so I felt like this was totally me. I also found that at Round Top for $10. It was stored all the way in the back of a trailer, And I was like, what is that? Because I love plastic. And I was like, that's something plastic. I already know I'm going to like it. So I'm super glad that I found that. And I just have some of my thrifted pieces. Like for my bar cart, I have a billiard ball tray that has matching glasses on it. And yeah, it's just some of my favorite things. I love to hang out in this chair that I got from IKEA. And I also have this silica packet pillow that I added just for a little extra comfort. And I love things that are kind of camp and different and oversized when they're not supposed to be. So this olive rug is a newer addition to this area. I went to Minnesota for my birthday and I went to a vintage store and the woman was so nice and she had a butter and she had an olive rug and I was like, I have to have the olive rug because on my bar card I have an olive toothpick holder, so I felt like it was just gonna tie in the area, and it's just amazing. I love food decor. You'll kind of see that's like a common theme that I kind of like Easter egg throughout my house. It's just random food decor items, so that's definitely something that kind of coexists throughout the whole space. So the prints, whenever you coexist with someone else, you kind of have to have a push and pull when it comes to decorating. So I let go of some of the control in that area. So my fiance actually picked both of these. The Ferrari is actually from an estate sale that we went to together. And I was like, you know what? I like the chrome frame. So I was definitely game for that. And hopefully in the future, we'll buy a vintage car. So that's kind of like manifesting a vintage car for us. And then Halloween, that's his favorite season. So, and I love old Halloween movies too. When I was growing up, it was my mom's favorite thing to just turn on old horror movies. So I really love the Halloween one because I feel like that's such a classic. So some of my favorite records would be, first off, Clairo. She is my favorite at the moment. So I have 2 of her albums, and since it's fall, I feel like Clairo is just my go-to right now. Like, especially at home, it feels so cozy, and I don't know, it's just the mood right now for me is Clairo. So this one's one of my favorites. Also, this one I recently had on, this is Jamie XX, which we saw them at Governor's Ball a few years ago, a long time ago. And yeah, so we recently got this one. So that one's been on repeat a lot too. Another favorite that I've been listening to is Sade because she's just my queen and I love her. So whenever I first started decorating my entryway, the first thing that I changed was our front door, because when you move into a new build, everything is just so white and it's not inviting. So I felt like instead of painting the whole room, because I do love color, but I also like to have a balance. So I feel like mixing neutrals and color is a good way to not overstimulate yourself. So I felt like if I just added a nice pop to our front door, that it would make such the difference, and it really has. And I love the yellow. I was gonna do blue, but I'm so happy I went with yellow, and I kind of ran with it. So that's why I added the yellow chair to kind of tie in with the door. And I think the fun thing too is that I can always just change the color whenever I want to, because you can always just paint over it. But I really love this yellow. It's like the warm, like sunshine yellow. So when the light comes in, it's everything. And so when you move from the entryway, this is the next area that you run into. And this is where I keep a lot of my plants. I feel like in 2020, I kind of developed, I needed a newer hobby. So I decided to start caring for plants. My friend was into it, so I was like, you know what, like that would be so cute to have something to bond over. So I started buying plants and I went completely overboard. So this is kind of my reduced version because they become a lot to take care of. So these are kind of just like the ones that I felt more connected to that I decided to keep. And I got this storage unit from IKEA, and they're 2 separate ones, but I combined them to kind of make it more of a statement. And so I just keep some of my plants on it. We have a little storage bin to hide like our Wi-Fi and all of that. And then at the bottom, I added our blankets because I love to have a blanket when I'm just watching movies. And then I love having lights on a shelf. I feel like it adds a little something unexpected. So I love having a little addition of a light. And I've had this IKEA bulb light for years, and for some reason I can just never get rid of it, and I always find a new way to use it. So I'm glad that to this day I can still find new ways to add it into my home. And now we've entered our dining area. I felt like it was really important to create little moments in an open space. So I feel like whenever you kind of section off an area, it becomes its own. So I have this checkered rug to kind of make it feel more like it's its own moment. And then I love this circular table. I had a rectangle table, but I kind of grew out of love with that one, and I really love this round one because it doesn't take up as much space, and I feel like you can kind of sit anywhere on the table and kind of still have a view and feel a part of the room. And I actually painted the top of this green because when I was traveling in Europe, I saw so many cafes that had like a colorful top to their table and mismatched chairs. So I was like, as soon as I get home, I'm doing that. So I found this table, painted it green, and I really love it. And then I found these bar stools recently that are chrome, and they're a replica of the Knoll bar stools, but I really love how it looks with the wood. It's a nice contrast, and I think it just fits in really well and adds that like mismatch but intentional to the look of the space. And of course, another plant because I just love them. And then so right next to our dining table, this is actually a bench that went with the rectangle dining table I had. And I really like the bench, so I decided to keep it here. And sometimes I'll let my plants sunbathe here. And then I also have these pug figurines that I thrifted. I guess someone donated a collection of them, and they each have their own outfits for different occasions. So I think it's the cutest thing. And our pug recently passed away, so I feel like this is a cute little reminder to always keep his energy and his spirit around. So the type of home that I'm currently living in, it's a townhouse, so it's 2 stories, and we also have a balcony and a garage and a front yard, so that's really nice. So the process of finding our home took quite some time because we definitely were looking to move into a bigger space because at the time I was running a vintage store and we were running out of room. So we're like, okay, we need to find somewhere bigger. And we were living in the city in Dallas. So we're looking around that area, and luckily we had a friend that was a realtor, so he was really patient with us. So we started looking at homes in Dallas. We looked at a few of them, but we didn't really see anything we liked. And so we're like, okay, we need to venture out and kind of go a little further. And for me, I feel like thrift stores and estate sales and all of that was very important to me at the time and still is. So we're like, okay, so the suburbs have a lot of really good thrift stores and estate sales because we would always drive to this area to go thrift shopping and go to estate sales. So we're like, okay, maybe we should look in the area where we're always kind of working. So we came out to the suburbs and we saw this new development. We're like, oh, let's check this out, even though it wasn't like a single family home that we were looking for, but we're like, might as well just check because we haven't found anything that we like so far. So we toured this one. Our whole row was actually up on the market, so we went into each unit to see which one we felt fit our needs best. And so we really fell in love with this one. I felt like the layout was perfect for what we're looking for. So as soon as we looked at it the first time, we're like, yes, this is definitely the one for us. So it worked out perfectly, and we've been here for about, I would say, 5 years now, and it's really become like our safe space, our comfort space. So I just love that we found this home. And now we're moving into the living room area right off of the dining room area. And I feel like the thing that you would probably notice first whenever you're moving over to this area is our gallery wall. It's definitely full from the top to the bottom, and this is a collection of all of our like prints that we've collected over the years. They're all from different places. Some of them, a lot of the movie themed ones are from a brand called Mondo, and they kind of specialize in movie art. And then some of them, like this checkered one, is from an Instagram creator. Her shop is KJ Shop, and I think she's based out of the UK. She does screen printing, so I really like that one. And then this Miffy one is from when we went to Amsterdam over the summer, and I'm a huge Miffy enthusiast, and it was a store full of just all Miffy items. So I definitely went a little overboard with that. And then this one, it's a fabric embroidery piece of art, and I found that one at an estate sale for $20. And the thing that caught my eye about that one was the yellow frame. I was like, perfect. My house is gonna really coexist with that one really nicely. I love colorful frames, if you can tell. So a lot of the ones that do have colored frames are from thrift stores or estate sales. But then, like I said, I love neutrals, so I'll add in like a brass or a black or a white or like a wood, just because I didn't want it to look too put together. I kind of like how it looks like you've kind of collected over time, or that you kind of just randomly one day decide to throw some up, which is what I do sometimes. I'm always adding to this wall, so I kind of like how it looks chaotic, but it makes sense, at least to me. So I really love that. And then I also decided to add some like invisible bookshelves, just because I thought maybe if I only had prints that it would be a little overwhelming. So I thought it'd be nice to kind of break it up by adding some different elements to it. And I also like how I kind of, this invitation print, I like how it's just sitting on the table, because again, it kind of adds to that not put together, but put together, because it's like, oh, why is one just sitting there? It's like, it makes sense, at least to me. And the Shining one, I think that one might be my favorite because I love that movie. It's a classic in my household, so I think that one's really fun. I love vintage plastic items, and this is a Joe Colombo trolley. If you like plastics and space age, this is kind of like a collector's item. And I stood in line at 7 a.m. for an estate sale to get this piece, and somehow it was still there when I got into the house, and it's probably top 3 favorite finds that I've ever found. It has all the pieces, and I use it to store a lot of my crafts and my DIYs. So I really love this, and when I found it, I didn't know if I liked the red, but because I love the style and I've been wanting this piece for so long, I decided to just start incorporating red into my house. So you can see like I have the red frame and like red in the artwork. I have red in our rug as well, and just little pops throughout our house, which all stem from this piece right here. And then another find is this cartel chair. We actually have an ongoing estate sale. It's like a bunch of warehouses that are like 2 minutes from our house. And so I saw this in there one day, and I was just like, I have to have this. So I thought it would go nicely with our rug because it's blue. So it's a really cool, interesting piece to have, and I love the shape of it too. Oh, and then my favorite, my #1 favorite find I've ever found is our coffee table. I'm not sure of the technical name, but from what I've researched, it's an 80s scroll table. And it's really crazy because I found a picture like this on Pinterest years ago, and I was like, that is my dream coffee table. And then we went to Benbrook in Fort Worth. They have an amazing antique store there. And I walked past a booth that had nothing in it. It was just empty. And then all that was in there was this table. And I was like, no way. Like, I was out of body. I was like, there's no way this is just right here. So I posted it on my stories, and I was like, should I get this? Because it was kind of pricey. And so I left, and then everyone's like, are you dumb? Go get it. So then I called them, and I was like, there was some damage. Do you think you could come down on the price? And they said they would. So I drove back up there and grabbed it, and I was so happy it was still there. So it's definitely a conversation piece, is our coffee table. And I don't think I could ever get rid of it. It's my favorite thing. And then my couch is also another favorite of mine. I've gone through my fair share of couches. I'm very picky because if I'm going to be watching TV or working or watching a movie, I want to be comfortable, and I want to be able to lay on it and not just sit there, because I would always gravitate towards decor type couches, and they're never comfortable. So I went to Design Within Reach and tested out some couches because I was like, I want to invest in a nice couch. So we saw this one, and it was very comfortable, and it's kind of one of those couches where you can like slump back in it and like really get comfortable. And they had a whole book of just so many swatches and patterns that it came in. And so I kind of sat there for like an hour just going through all of them and like kind of contemplating what would go with our house. but this color, it's called Bitterroot. I was like, you know what? It's so different and unexpected. And I wasn't sure about it, but something in my gut was like, just go for it. So I'm so glad I did. We had to wait forever for it to come because it was like a custom color. But I love it. It's amazing. And I feel like it's the most asked thing I get questions about is where my couch is from. So the brand is called Hey, and it's called the Hackney sofa, and it's amazing. But sadly, they don't sell the Bitterroot color anymore for some reason, but there are still a lot of interesting colors that you can get the couch in. So our rug is from Etsy. It's a very cobalt bright blue. And the thing that really made me fall in love with this rug was the red line that goes around at the border. I feel like it adds a nice contrast. And it also ties in some of the red pops that kind of exist in this space. And it's extremely comfortable too. It's a, I think it's called a Berber rug. So it's very plush, it's very soft, and it's probably one of the most comfortable rugs that I've ever had. So I love this rug, and I love how it's solid because I feel like there's a lot that goes on as far as like patterns and colors. So I felt like having something solid as a rug would be a nice little change in here. So I'm really happy with how it kind of ties everything together. And then this couch, actually, when I first started getting into making home decor content, the brand Herman Miller sent me this couch, which I think is so crazy because I'm like, I actually really love that brand now that I've gotten more into home decor. And they were doing a relaunch of their 70s style couch called the Chicklet. And so I kind of like how it's not vintage, but it's in a vintage style. So this one would kind of be more of a decor couch for me. I don't sit on it as much, mainly because I don't want it to get dirty, but it's definitely more of a like sit upright kind of chair. So whenever I'm working, sometimes I'll sit there, but definitely when I'm lounging, it's always the purple Bitterroot couch for me. And then I also found this tomato pillow from World Market. And I love it because it also ties in my love for food decor. And it's just a nice little addition and a nice little pop. So I didn't want to do matching side tables next to our couch because I like things that don't go together. And I have the trolley on that side. So I'm like, I have to do something fun on this side too. So I found this corn, which I love, and I love the details, how it has like a little bite mark on both sides. It makes it look hyper realistic. And I just love that it's not even the size of a corn, it's just oversized. And then I thrifted this little decorative plate, and it has egg candles on top of it, because why not? And I also have a butter candle, so sometimes I'll put the butter on the dish, and then sometimes I'll have my egg candles on the dish. So it just depends on the day. And then right behind the couch and the side table, I have this stone floor lamp. This was a find that I found in 2021, I think, from an Instagram seller that lives in Austin. So I actually drove to Austin to pick it up. And it doesn't kind of go with everything in here, but I like how different it is. And I feel like the fact that it's white makes it more neutral, so it doesn't really matter like, oh, is it Scandi, is it 70s? It doesn't really matter, it's neutral. Sometimes you notice it, sometimes you don't, but I think the thing that makes it stand out is the lampshade. So while I was in Austin, I was like, I want to make sure that the lamp and all the wiring is good, since it's an older lamp, it's like a postmodern lamp. And at the lamp shop, when they were fixing it up, they also had lampshades, and I didn't have one. So I was looking around the store and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. It kind of looks like tie-dye. So I kind of liked the juxtaposition, because if the tie-dye where it breaks up, it kind of matches the rock texture. So I felt like it went together in like the tiny details, which is my absolute favorite. I'm such a details person, so I love the way that it came together. And then my disco ball was actually a DIY that I did, because I wanted it to hang, but I didn't know exactly how I was gonna get it to hang. So I found this yellow chain at the hardware store in what is it called? A carabiner, yeah. And then I found this fun carabiner. So I was like, okay, so, and it had like a little keychain loop. So I just kind of pieced together like a puzzle, each of the pieces. and I used a nail with a hook and just hung it on there. And I think it looks nice, especially at night. The way the lamp shines on it, it kind of cascades the disco lights. So I really like it, and it's like a fun little moment. And so this is our like entertainment center area. And so we have our TV mounted, and I've been looking forever, and I mean ever, for a way to kind of create a TV stand because the TV is so big. So I decided to give up, and I went to IKEA and I found these, I guess they're side tables, and I was like, you don't have to use a TV stand because you kind of have to break your mind to not think so linear. And I feel like it's your home, you can do what you want. So I just bought 2 of these side tables, and they actually have wheels so they roll. So like if you have guests over, you can always just move them closer in or move them around. But I kind of just use them for storage. So some of my decor items that I wanted out that I didn't know where to put, I kind of just stack them on top. And then I have my little storage bins that hold like my journals and like some computer equipment that I use. So I think it turned out really cute, and I love the red. I didn't even have to paint them. They just came red, which is amazing. So it kind of ties in that red theme that I like to have pop throughout the house. So then when you're heading out from the living room, you enter another fun space that I created, and I call this my things wall. This is kind of a newer addition because whenever I thrift, sometimes I'll just buy things and not exactly know what I want to do with them. But I kind of knew, I was like, I have a lot of artwork hanging on the other wall, so I was like, I kind of want to have a wall to where I can have just wall decor, like no photos, no anything, just random things that I love. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a things wall so I can just hang all my things that I love. So a lot of it is just pieces that I've collected over the years. So I thrifted this old IKEA clock, and the thing that I love about it the most is that it's actually a book holder. I just have a magazine in it right now, but you can really put anything you want in it, and I've never seen a clock like that before. I think it's really unique how, you know, it serves multiple purposes. I also have this magazine holder. I thrifted this as well. I think it was maybe like $4, and I realized that it was metal, so I was like, I'm just gonna add a magnet and some photos to it just to give it a little extra touch of personality. And then I also have this no food or drinks allowed sign. It's vintage that I got from an antique mall in Kansas. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny because it's just like your house. Like, obviously, you're gonna have food and drinks. And I put it next to the Burger King because drinks and food, love Burger King. And I actually went to an estate sale, and I think the guy who lived there was like an executive for Burger King. So there was so much Burger King merch there, and it was so cool to see. So I also got this burger from there too, and it's actually a music box. So it has a little twist on the back, and it like plays the song, which is interesting. And then I also have this paper clip. It's just a wall decor piece, and I thrifted that as well for like $3. And I love how it's just oversized because I just love things that are small but oversized. And I also have this like horse ribbon. I just love the colors because I have yellow, red, and blue. I love primary colors, and I have a lot of those in my house. So I was like, oh, that's so perfect and random and unexpected. And then I have this donut light that's from IKEA. I love this too. It adds nice texture to the home. And then I also have a gummy bear lamp that lights up too. So I have a lot of random knickknacks, but they're all special to me, and I love all of them. So another food stool that I have in my house is a bagel, and I kind of change around what's on it. I usually have a plant on it, but I wanted to have my butter on it recently, so I kind of just left it how it is. But you can do pretty much anything with these. I was even playing around with the idea of adding a glass topper to this, so maybe I'll do that one day. But I think it's, once again, just like a really cool conversation piece to have. And when you have just a space that you're like, I feel like something should go there, I think you should kind of, if you see something you like, just throw it there and leave it there for a while and see how you feel about it. So that's what I did with my bagel. I would say that my decor style kind of originated from when I was working corporate. There is a very large department retailer that's based here in Dallas, and I was hired on to work on their online e-commerce site in their home department. And that was like so new for me because I didn't really have much of an interest for home, but I was like, oh, this will be so exciting and something new. So after working there for a couple years, I really started to grow and love the home aspect, because we would get to go to shoots and like see how everything was styled and curating different styles online. So I felt like I really got in tune with like an appreciation for different styles that weren't my own. And I feel like I started to take some of those things and implement them into my own home. And I feel like that's when I really started to be like, I like fashion, but I feel like your home can also translate what you wear and your personality besides just what you have on. So when you have people come over or you're like posting photos of your home, it's like people are like, oh, that looks just like you. And I kind of love that about homes, because you can really get an idea for who the owner is. And I just think that's the most fun part. And I feel like the simplicity that a lot of Scandinavians have is very personal and minimal at the same time. It's just really hard to describe. It's very like authentic and raw, and they use a lot of different unique textures, which I really enjoy. So something about it I feel like just resonates to me, and it's hard to explain. And I went on a trip to Copenhagen this summer and I was like, this is me. Like, this makes so much sense why this is what I'm into. So now let's head to the kitchen. So now we're in the kitchen, and I think the thing that I love most about our kitchen are our green countertops. This was kind of a DIY because we didn't want to change completely our countertops. We were kind of just looking for something temporary to see what we might want to do eventually. So I wanted to do something fun. So these are actually furniture, like vinyl countertop covers. So you can use them on like any type of furniture, but we decided to use them on our countertop, and you can remove them easily. They're kind of just like a very strong sticker. And it definitely takes a while to get on and a little frustrating, but I think it turned out really nice. And I feel like it breaks up like the traditional like kind of new build and gives it some character. So before, the countertops were just like the classic like gray granite that matched the gray backsplash. So I feel like it's nice to have a little bit of color in here, so it's a little more fun, because I wasn't ready to commit to painting our cabinet. So I feel like doing like a temporary, like renter friendly kind of update was definitely up our alley, and I really like how it turned out. So I think some of my favorite things in our kitchen that I've thrifted would be our spice rack. It's actually a plastic, like space age kind of spice rack, and it spins, and I added labels so you can see like what spices we have in here. But I think it's so different and unexpected, and it kind of looks like a toy. When I saw it in the thrift store, I thought it was like a toy truck or something, but I was like, wait, that's a spice rack. That's so cool. So I'm so glad that I found that. And then I also found this teapot, which I would consider this to be a collector's item. It's a tulip teapot, and I think it's from the 90s or maybe the 80s. And I found it for $15 at an estate sale. But when you look these up online, they go from like $150 to $300. So I feel like I got a really amazing deal on this. And it comes in a few different colorways, but I really love the pink. But one day, maybe I would like to find the one that has red tulips, but I just love this one so much. And then I have this spoon rest that is an egg yolk. This is from an Etsy shop, and she makes ceramics. And you can actually choose what color you want your yolk and if you want it to have pepper on it. So I chose the organic cage-free orange with pepper flakes. And I think it's a cute little addition to have while you're cooking. And then I also have this little tray that I use to hold our salt, which I also got this off eBay, and I have a matching butter dish. I think there's a whole collection where it has like a teapot and everything, so I'm working my way into collecting everything from the collection. But I also have some olive oils, but the fun thing is that it's actually a billiard ball rack where you like line up the balls. So I think it's really fun, and like I have an ongoing theme of pool table stuff as well. When I was growing up, my parents had a pool table right in our living room, like in the center of everything. So I thought that was interesting. Now that I'm older, I'm like, that was kind of interesting, but it just has so many core memories for me when I was growing up. So I feel like whenever I see something that's related to a pool table, I'm like, I have to have that. And yeah, those are some of my favorite things in our kitchen. And I love this lamp that I also got at a West Elm outlet. I love how it kind of looks like a mushroom, and then I kind of store some of my cookbooks and just decorative books there. And I feel like it's a nice little solace moment to have in the kitchen. And so whenever you come in from the back of our house, where our garage is, you kind of want to take your things off your coat, put your keys down. So I found this coat rack at IKEA, and I love this purple color because it ties into our locker that we have by our things wall. And this is where we store our hats, jackets, purses. And then I have this artwork above it that's from a brand called Portray Me. And basically you pick like 10 to 15 items that you want drawn, and then you send them the photos, and then they hand draw each of the items that you requested and kind of make like a little collage. So I did some of my favorite like home decor items, our dog. So I think it's really cool, and it's a creative idea. So I felt like our countertops needed kind of like a centerpiece, and I wasn't sure if I just wanted to do a fruit bowl. So I have this tray that I got at Anthropologie, and then I wanted something to display my favorite candle holders on. They're vintage chrome candle holders, and the fun thing about these is that they stack. So you can like take them apart and kind of build them however you want, which I think is super fun and creative, and you can kind of create a new piece every time that you're feeling like you want to switch things up. And I found it at a flea market in Berlin this summer, and it had been on my list for so long. So when I saw it, I was super excited because they go for quite a bit online. So I was just like, I don't care how much, I have to have it. Like, I've never seen one in person, so I'm super happy. And it's also cool too because you can keep adding to it. So the person who was selling them, he had a ton of them. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm just gonna start with 3, so then I can keep building from there, because you can stack them like as high as you want. So maybe next time I'll have one that goes all the way to my ceiling, hopefully. It's hard to pick a favorite because I feel like I pour so much of my energy and passion into like everything that I put into my home, because it's taken me a long time to decorate this place. It's like hasn't ever been like fully decorated, because with vintage, it takes a while to just find exactly what you're looking for. So it's kind of like this push and pull to where you know exactly what you want, you just want it because you can see the vision. But then when you're out and you're looking and trying to source things, it's like you're not always finding exactly what you're looking for. But I would say the first thing that really came together was this area, the living room, the main section where we're sitting. And I feel like it kind of just ties everything together, and then everything that splinters off of it kind of reflects the main hub of our living room. But I would definitely say that the living space, and also we have this music area that's right when you walk in the entryway. And I feel like that's a little spot to where you can kind of read your book, listen to a new record. I love collecting vinyls. So I think it's just a cool little space to where it kind of feels a little separate from the rest of the downstairs because it's an open space. So I try to create these little moments in each little pocket that we have down here, so it kind of feels like it has its own aura. And then so whenever you're leaving the kitchen and you walk this way, you'll run right into our coffee nook area. So one of the standout pieces that we have in our coffee nook area is this table. It's actually an old library card holder, which I think is super special, and I love the story behind it. So it came from like a local public library. And I think my favorite thing about it is that you can actually pull both of these out. And so like when you're making a coffee, you can just set your like milk or your frothed items or your toppings on here while you're just making your coffee, which I think is really unique. And it's definitely one of my favorite pieces over here. And then where I store some of my mugs and things that I use to make teas and things like that, I found this at a garage sale for $5. And I feel like it's perfect for this area because it fits my mugs perfectly, and I like that it's kind of acting as like an open shelf, and I think it's really neat how it ended up kind of matching the same wood as this table, because I didn't buy them together, but I like how they kind of marry each other and they make sense together. So I love when I get things from all these different places and somehow they kind of just end up living beautifully together. I think it really creates a nice story to where you're not buying all of your pieces from the same stores and things like that, and you're kind of just finding things here and there and finding ways to make them go together. So that's kind of what I like to do whenever I'm brainstorming on how to create a nice spot in my house. And then actually, I go very deep into my secondhand finds. I actually got this tree from an estate sale, and I actually had seen a bunch of trees like this on Pinterest, and I was like, I don't know like where I could ever find a tree like that. And then I went to an estate sale and found one. And the thing I like most about it is that you have these like sharp, kind of harsh leaves that come off of it, but then the stem is this really fun swirl, which I like to incorporate in my house. I like kind of softer edges, so I was so excited when I found it, and I think it's so special. And then my light is also from Round Top. I found this in one of the tents outside in the fields there, and I just fell in love with the shape, and I also love the color. I've never seen a lamp like that before, so I definitely wanted to find somewhere to put it in my house, and I felt like this space made a lot of sense for that. And then I have my first ever piece of like a painting that I bought. Her name is Emma Ortiz. She makes these really beautiful paintings out of Miami. And I kind of just told her a few colors that I wanted in it, but I just really love her work, so I didn't want to like be too specific because I trusted her vision. So I'm really excited with how it turned out. It's amazing, and I feel like it's definitely my style. And then I went to a custom framer, and I was going back and forth on colors, but I really like the yellow with it, which then somehow tied into this light as well. So I feel like when you know what colors you like, you don't really have to be so specific and detailed when you're looking around, because I feel like your mind just somehow kind of knows like you have these colors, this is gonna go. So I feel like I've gotten really lucky in terms of like what colors go together in my home. My home design tip is to don't listen to anyone else. Like if you have an idea and you like something, you definitely should go for it. I feel like everyone has opinions, everyone's taste is different. So I don't think you should be very consumed with what would someone think? Does this go together? I feel like it doesn't really matter. I feel like if it's something that you like and you feel really passionate about, that's something that you should just run with, because even if it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, I feel like if you have that passion and you have that vision for it, it's going to turn out amazing. And I feel like decorating your home is a lot of knowing who you are and having strong opinions on what you like and don't like. And when you're that specific about what you're into, I feel like it translates really beautifully. And most importantly though, don't be afraid of color. I love when people have color in their home, even if it's not my style personally. I can always appreciate anyone who incorporates color into their home, even if it's just too much, color everywhere, love it. I also love whenever someone does have a more neutral style, but then they want to incorporate like decorative pillows or colorful curtains. I just have an appreciation for anyone who's not afraid to add color into their home, because I really feel like it adds dimension and it shows your personality, which I think is really important in your home. So home for me is whenever I can come home when I'm feeling anxious, stressed, having a bad day, and I feel like all those nerves just melt off of me. That really makes me feel like I've created the perfect space for myself. I think it's so important to have a space where you feel like you can just let loose and all of your nerves just run off of you. I think it's really important to where you can feel comfortable and feels like a warm hug. That's how I know, like, that's just an amazing home.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Marianne DeLay. Welcome to my home in historic Oak Park, Illinois. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Marianne DeLay, and this is my 1920s condo in Oak Park, Illinois. I grew up in an Italian immigrant enclave 40 miles south of Chicago, and it had a lot to do with who I am today, actually. I grew up with Italian grandparents. My grandpa had owned a funeral home, and my parents worked really hard. So my dad was a fireman. He worked 24 on, 24 off, and my mom was working, she had a health food store. She was also like an awesome 70s lighting sales lady. But what happened is I was stuck with my grandpa. So my grandpa, this was the 70s, my grandpa would pick me up and I would go hang out in the funeral home, which is pretty crazy, and with old Italian guys. And some of that is kind of formed who I am. I'm kind of like more of an older soul. And what happened is across the street from the funeral home, and this was the 70s where kids were kind of wild childs, he's like, hey, you know, just go do what you want. Here's $5. And there was a thrift store across the street. So I would just go in the thrift store and I would just spend hours there trying to I'd find all these cool little things. I would bring home tables when I was 17. I didn't have a house, and my grandpa's, my dad's like, what are you doing? You live here, you don't need this marble table. I'm like, but it's really pretty, and when I have an apartment someday I will. So, and I was always the kind of person where my mom would come home and the house would be completely rearranged. And then sometimes she was very happy, and then a lot of times she was not very happy. And she would just say, you can do this when you get your own house. So I would collect all these treasures when I would hang out with my grandpa, and then I would bring them home, like marble tables and weird stuff like that. And I also had amazing, in the 80s, it was an amazing time because I had all of these great 1920s, like flapper dresses. You can get them for like $1. Like no one was buying this stuff. So it was just this amazing time to find all of these pieces, and I actually still have some of the clothes. So we are in my living room, also my entry. So you walk in, we don't really have an entry, but you walked right into the living room. This is our sofa. My husband, we got it off an auction. So this is a really cool piece. This came from, I think, Pennsylvania. It's a Milo Bauman. It's a cantilever, so it floats. Because our space is so small, you can't really see the floating. So when you walk in, it's nice. You get a little bit of the floating detail. We have this monster mirror, which helps bounce off the light in a very dark place. I got this mirror. I drove 2 hours. It's American. It's Victorian. And it actually came out of a huge old hotel in like southern Illinois, kind of like an 1850s hotel that got destroyed. And so I drove to a family that had rescued it. Unfortunately, they painted it, and I have yet to kind of tone it back down. But it's an actual old mirror from kind of like that Southern Illinois, river town, when, all those magnets, railroad magnets and all that. It came from a really big old hotel from there. And then this couple was like the stewards of it. And then I bought it from them. I really love hearing what people, when they walk into my, especially my personal environment, I love to hear people's reactions because I really don't have a preconceived, it's just literally in my head, and these pieces kind of all whirl and then form this weird narrative and it pulls together some way. I don't ever have like, hey, I'm gonna have like this, I don't know, Scandinavian, vibe, or I'm gonna have, I don't. It just, I honestly don't know. It just comes out. So I don't really have a good answer for that. They're just these pieces that live together in a very strange, eclectic way that I like. So this is, my husband and I got this at Jean Cocteau's house in Milly-la-Forêt. And Jean Cocteau is like pretty much one of my favorite human beings. And his house they turned it into a museum. And we got this poster here, and it's Bella Bet, so it's Beauty and the Beast, which I personally love the original Jean Cocteau movie. It's just, the aesthetics of it are just incredible. So this piece means a lot to us because I kind of went to like my favorite person's house. And he was actually, the house was designed by Madeleine Castaing, who was also my favorite, one of my favorite interior designers. Only a couple of the rooms survive, but it's absolutely incredible. So every time I see this piece, I just think of my amazing trip that meant so much to me. This dude, I've had this decapitated dude probably for 20 years, and I realized when I put him out that I've been carrying around a decapitated Roman head. I'm like, so this kind of just says a lot. I just love him. I don't know why. Over here, this is a great story. This is a monster horse painting, and that I think this was still Craigslist. This was years and years ago. I answered an ad in Craigslist, and this man met me, and I think I had like a Scion or something. And he's like, well, the painting's really big. And I was like, okay. So we met in this park, and he comes and it's strapped to his tiny little like Honda Civic. It's on his roof. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And then we unstrap it. And he said he inherited from his father, was a groundskeeper for this wealthy man on the North Shore of Chicago who had horses. And so when that man died, he gave him this monster horse painting. So this guy lived in Chicago with his tiny Honda Civic, and I'm sure his wife is like, our place is too tiny for this ginormous horse painting, get this out of here. So he put it on Craigslist, and so then I got it from him. And then I had to strap it to my roof of my car and then bring it home. But it's an original painting. It came out of some big monster mansion with some man who loved horses, but I love it. You know, when you have a room like this, when you live in an apartment or a condo and you don't have a lot of square footage, your layouts are very complicated. So this room took a lot to figure out, actually, because this room is a workhorse, because behind this door is everything, our everything closet, like everything you can imagine is shoved in this closet under the stairs. So you walk in through here, you have to go to the closet, you have to go to the dining room and the kitchen, so you have to have all these little walkways and pathways, and then you have the staircase. I've had this stark rug for about 8 years, and I've always had leopard rugs. Before the grass cloth, I actually have vintage leopard wallpaper, and I was just gonna leopard it out. I literally, if you go to my Instagram, there is one where I was just hacking it up. I was like, oh, this is really something. Like, this is a mood. And I was gonna do leopard wallpaper with the leopard rug. So leopard to me doesn't bother me. It will bother a lot of people. I don't know, maybe it's like, you know, 70s Italian American vibe that I grew up with, but to me it's always kind of a classic neutral. I've always had a leopard rug. And I think hints of leopard in a room kind of are necessary, kind of like hints of black. You always need black in a room to ground it. I think it gets a bad rap, but I think more people definitely have come around to it. This guy came out of a big mansion out of Riverside, Illinois, and it actually was larger, so we had to kind of cannibalize it and make it smaller. What I love about it, and this kind of says a lot about maybe the way that I am, it's perfectly imperfect. Like, these aren't hanging perfectly, but I kind of like it. And it could go up a little bit, but this is, I think, probably, you know, it's like 1890s that he was talking about where the house was coming out of, but it was even larger. So it was pretty grand. But yeah, we got it out of a house from there when we moved here. Because when we moved in here, the walls were all gray, and he literally had the boob lights in every room. So it was just like those closet lights. This table I've actually had for a very, very long time. I love kind of just clear coffee tables. I do love big old wooden ones too, but especially in a smaller space. This is just a piece probably like early 80s. It just kind of reads as clear, and which is nice is in front of the fireplace you can still see these crazy griffins, which are concrete, which are insanely heavy. I got these from one of my favorite dealers. Her name is McGillicuddy. I think I've had this for about, I don't know, 8 years or whatever, but I saw this and I had to have it. And oddly enough, I bought this way before I bought this, and it just fit. It just fit right in there, which is pretty perfect. And the fireplace is pretty amazing. It came from this cute old Polish couple. So if you're in Chicago, Chicago has a huge Polish community. So I think that they have one of the largest communities out of Warsaw. But anyway, so I pull up in this Polish neighborhood, and it was this cute little old couple. They didn't speak any English. I mean, this was in their garage. And so I grabbed that from them, and then I put this in here, which is a happy marriage. So this is the Contessa de Castiglione, and so I've had her for 20 years. She's a blown-up photograph, and what she literally, so she's from Paris, and she was Napoleon III's mistress, but what she did is she single-handedly invented the selfie. So she basically would hire her own photographer, dress herself up, and do all of, she just take pictures of herself. And she was known as this, you know, beautiful courtesan that would, you know, she was the knockout of like 1890s Paris. And apparently this little dimple here, it was like super sexy. I don't know. But I've had this for 20 years, and it's a photograph of a book that I got in Paris that one of my good girlfriends, she knew how much I loved her, and she was a graphic designer. So for my birthday, my husband gave her, snuck the book, and then she blew this up for me and put it on board. And I've had it for like 20 years. And what's funny now, she's famous. Like people now know her. And I was looking at stuff that you could put above your TV, you know, the TV art. And she's on there, which is pretty amazing. So I've had her forever. She's been in every apartment. I've carried, like with the decapitated head, I've carried her to many places. And she's just a crazy wackadoo character. You should really read up on her because her life was pretty insane. But yeah, she was all about inventing herself. She would do all of these, like, she'd dress herself up as all these different characters and hire a photographer. And a lot of my adult life has been, it sounds sad, but going through dead people's things and buying them either, you know, for the shop, for myself, for other people, bringing them into my home. And I know a lot of people believe that energies can stay on these items. I don't think so. And you know what? My grandpa, growing up in the funeral home, told me one thing when I was really little. He's like, and I'm like, I don't know, Grandpa, it's kind of creepy. And he's like, do you think that they want to hang out here? He's like, they want to go home. They want to like hang out, put their feet up on their own sofa and stuff. So I kind of feel like I just take my grandpa's words, like they're not in this vase. They're like, if they're somewhere, they're like at home. They want to hang out at home. This is my baby. It's actually missing a panel, but this is a true Fornasetti screen. It has some damage. I have another panel upstairs, and the beauty of this is, you know, part of my treasure hunting. I went to, in Chicago, there's a North Shore, and it has like where all the wealthy people live. It's just mansions on the lake. It's just beautiful. And so every year they have this amazing church sale that all designers go to. I mean, it's for like 3 days, and it starts at, literally you can get in at 6 a.m. and people wait outside. It's nuts. Everyone goes. Rich people, poor people, everyone wants to go to the sale. Anyways, I never go to sales early. I always am like the person that I don't want to wait in line. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. There'll always be more stuff. So at the end of the last day of the sale, I go. They close at 3. I went at like 2:30. I was like, oh, I forgot. I'm going to the sale. This screen was behind the checkout counter. So during the whole sale, people were checking out, like, here, paid for my chair, da-da-da. And this screen was behind it. And I was like, what the fried eggs? What's going on here? How much is it? They're like, oh, it's $10. Do you want this screen? I was like, sure, I'll take this screen. Yeah, this is awesome. But I still can't believe, talking about treasure hunting, that this screen, which is like $18,000, it's a true Fornasetti screen, who I love Fornasetti. Like, was behind all those people. People were checking out and giving money and paying for everything for 3 days, and no one bought it, which I think is amazing. And that was like probably 10 years ago too. And I think that almost goes into like what we were talking about earlier, how people just weren't buying certain kinds of things. They were looking for like true mid-century pieces, true modern pieces, true this. Like they were just like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't think a lot of people knew. Like, I'm sure if an antique dealer knew that, you know, back then and would have gobbled it up, but which is interesting because the antique dealers go to this thing. And I asked the lady, it's like, was this out behind you the whole time? She's like, yeah, no one wants it. I don't know what the deal is. You can just have it for $10. And I was like, what? This I got at Randolph Market with my friend Kyla. And she reminds me actually a lot of Jean Cocteau's, some of his boyfriend's pieces, Jean Marais. But anyways, he did this sculpture, and it's this woman. I don't know, she's got to be from the 50s, but I just got it at the Randolph Street Market, and I just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. Like, I think I've had her for 6 years too. But you're right, I do have a lot of people staring at you. My mom always like, I feel kind of creeped out. There's a lot of people looking at me in this house. But I love her profile. She's just kind of like this, you know, I don't know. There's just something really beautiful about her. And then these are my grandparents, which that's my grandpa Giuseppe and Josephine. My grandpa Giuseppe's pretty amazing guy. He came here, I think he was 5, from Sicily. He didn't have an education, didn't do anything, just like most immigrants. But then he became the head brewmaster for Al Capone. So he created all these amazing ways to brew liquor. And yeah, that's him. And there's a great picture of him. I don't have it up. I have to frame all my pictures. There's pictures of him before Prohibition where he's with my grandma in the backyard with goats and a t-shirt. And then there's a picture of him after Prohibition. I mean, he's got like his car and he's like, woo, you know, he's looking great. But he was amazing. I feel real grateful for my age that I was raised around my grandparents, just because they really brought something, you know what I mean? It's just that generation to me. His stories were just amazing. So I do. Both of my grandpas are Italian. Both of my grandmothers sadly passed away before I was born, but I was raised, you know, with my grandparents. And in probably most immigrant communities, but Italian communities, your grandparents and your cousins are just pretty much your family. So my grandpa, you know, was like my dad. I would spend so much time with him that, you know, but I did grow up with both of them, and we did see them all the time. My grandpa Joe taught me how to play piano, and you know, so yeah, I miss them a lot. But I'm really grateful that we got to hang with that generation, because, I mean, he had just crazy stories. Like the first time he saw a car in Sicily, he thought it was the devil, like going down the hill, because there were no cars. And so here's this, he's on the top of the mountain, and there's this old car, think of the 1920s cars with the eyes and the grill, and it's going, and he started running because he thought it was the devil chasing after him. So now we're gonna go into the dining room. There are a pair of antique curtains here. These are actually out of an old mansion in Detroit, which is pretty amazing. They're really thin panels, but they do what they need to do to make this archway and create this view when you enter in here, which is our dining and our library. The living room kind of represents it reminds me a lot of how I was raised. So I grew up in the ultimate, I was telling him, I grew up in the ultimate 70s house. My dad built the house. He, you know, we had the, you know, spiral staircase, the triangle fireplace, the roofs, and we had all these cool wall murals. So like when I have something like this wall glass mural above my thing, it kind of reminds me of home. So this room, in a weird way, doesn't look anything like my home that I grew up, but there's more pieces in it that will remind me of it. I think this room is a little more colorful and dramatic, and there's a lot going on. And in there, this is our the dining room, and it's our library. And we've always lived in apartments, so we've always had our libraries in our dining room. We have tons and tons of books. We had to get rid of a lot, and there's more in storage. So I think each room kind of, I don't know if I have a favorite. That's a good question, because I think each room has its own vibe. And then when you go up to the bedroom, I tried to create more of a sense of calm, which some people would laugh at it, you know, they're like, oh, okay, lady. But because there's so much going on down here, you know, you've got textures and colors and books, and there's just, your eye is always kind of wandering. And then upstairs, I painted it kind of like a neutral color just to kind of bring it down a little bit. I'm also a color consultant, so I'm kind of like known for maximalism and saturated colors and patterns and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of play and bring it down a little bit, because both of these rooms, I think, kind of have a lot going on, don't you? So now we're in the dining room, and the archway separates the living room from the dining room. Our dining rooms have always had our books in our library, and we've had to scale back because usually we have a lot more books. My father-in-law was a French professor, so when he passed away, we inherited a lot of his books. And I have books, my husband has books, we both love to read. So our dining room has always been a place where we kind of sit down and we read, we eat. And just because when you have a small space, usually you have to have a library in your dining room. It's, you know, but I actually like the vibe that it is. It's just the two of us. And then when we have company, we have folding chairs that come out. And then if you notice, in our house, we'll always have little stools for the dogs because they're tiny. And that's what that is. Most of these books, like, they're all in, you know, from my father-in-law and from us. So that you'll see a lot of French books, a lot of my classic books. We like a lot of books, just reading a bunch of different things. I don't know, I've just kind of interplayed just some interesting things that I love coral. I don't know, I'm a Pisces, I don't know. And so this room is always just kind of, I don't know, it's like a room of curiosity. But this actually is one of my very, very favorite things. So this is a chandelier that I grew up with in my home. So this was like the 70s home that I'm always talking about. My mom was, after she owned a health food store, she became a sales rep for a modern lighting company in the 70s. So we had, in our home, we had all this amazing lighting, and this was always above our dining room. So when we moved out of that home, she boxed it up and then she gave it to me. But I love this thing, and it just kind of reminds me, I grew up eating underneath it, which is kind of crazy all these years. This piece was on Marketplace. This is a great Marketplace story, right? So this piece was on Marketplace, and when we moved in here, I found it, and I was like, oh, I think I want it for our dining room. So I contacted a lady, and the lady also is on the Chicago North Shore, where all the good pieces are. She said that it was from France. I actually think it's Italian. She said she got it shipped from France. I don't know. It's all faux. It's painted faux marble. So when I went to buy it, the lady's like, oh, it's gone. I'm sorry. So I'm like, oh, wait, I'm meeting you today. Then 5 months later, I go to a woman's house. This is such like Marketplace. I go to a woman's house to buy some lemons, like Italian topiary lemons. And it turns out I know this woman that she had shopped at the studio. And so we were talking. I was like, oh my God, I know you, and blah, 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 and la, la, la. And then she's like, oh, I want to show you something in the basement. And I walk by this table. And I was like, wait, where did you get this table? She's like, I got it from this old lady on Marketplace. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, I'm moving, but if I don't take this table, I'll let you know if I sell it. So it turns out she did move, and then she did decide to sell it, and then I actually got it, which is pretty bananas, isn't it? And so what's interesting with light and color as well, you know, the flipper did all our floors, these dark walnut, which is really nice, but it did bring the floor down a lot. And so this table, I just put like a everyday white rug on it, and it really made it all pop out. These chairs I got from a woman. I was actually going to put these in my bedroom to hide our AC units that were here, because they're nice, they hide the back. But I ended up getting them from this woman who, she said that she loves to change out her dining room all the time. And I'm like, okay. And so she's like on her 5th pair of chairs, and they just kind of landed. And I was going to put them upstairs, but I thought they looked so beautiful in here. And they have the leopard, and they're cushy and comfort, and they look great with this table. But this is actually also, this is an amazing story. This is a Massimo Vanelli marble lamp, and it's kind of like the Fornasetti. This is worth a lot of money. It's 9,000 pounds. We got it from this couple who worked, I think, at Trump Tower in Atlantic City. It's literally, it is all marble. It's 9,000 pounds, and I told my husband it's like when I die, he can sell it because he'll get a lot of money for it. Like there are pieces I'm like, okay, this is kind of like if your inheritance, if I die, just sell the screen and sell this, you'll get money. But I love it because it to me, the beautiful thing about it kind of looks kind of Roman, doesn't it, in a weird way? I've been trying to hone in on pieces that I really, really, truly love. Like, it's hard to be like, oh, I love this, I love this, I love this. And so what I've been trying to do, and it sounds really silly, and it probably people who are the exact opposite of me, but I've been trying to do something that I'm calling edited maximalism, where just because I own it, it does not have to be out. So there's a lot more stuff hiding and squirreled away in, behind that closet or in the locker. But I'm trying to kind of tone it down and hone it in. Just because I own it, it doesn't all have to be out. And, that's kind of where I'm going. And there is a lot going on in this room. But to me, this room has a lot of energy, and it has a lot of like creativity, and like it's reading and it's music and it's eating, has a lot of life force in it. I actually had a wall of these, and there's more panels that need to go up over there. But these came from like your Staten Island Nana. She had a wall of them. And so we took them out of her house, and I have like 8 of them. So one day I'll have a place where I could just have a huge monster wall of them. And so we just broke them up in here. There's 3 more panels that we have to figure out where to hang. And then these are just Elo cabinets. So these are just mirrored cabinets from like the late 70s, early 80s. They're like the smoky bronze, which I love. I went to college for classical archaeology and Latin. So I went to be a classical archaeologist with focused on Rome, ancient Rome. So I think I always kind of had this treasure hunting, squirreling little vibe, And then I realized that, after years in college, I wasn't going to really be what I thought it was going to be. Like I thought I'd fly in and be like, this urn is from blah, blah, blah period. And, and I realized in college that I would probably spend the majority of my life just like sifting through dirt with a brush. Like, it's a lot of tedious work, and I don't have that kind of, I'm a little more impatient. So I kind of lost my way, but I was always kind of having this treasure hunting vibe. And then I don't know how it happened. I've always kind of done interiors. I've always kind of, had unique apartments, and people always asked me to help them. I had different jobs, and then something happened. I hated my job so much. I was like, I think I was doing like commercial or industrial project management and director of administration, marketing, all this stuff. Like I could wear a cape. And I was like, I don't like this at all. This stinks. And so then I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. And so I quit. I worked my way up to where I wanted to be. And then I was like, this kind of really stinks. I don't like this. And I decided that I need to do something. And at that time, I think I was about 38, that I need to change to be happy. And I had always just done this. I had always just, from a small age, moving, styling, doing things. And then I opened up the Savoy Flea, which was this small, well, it wasn't small, actually. It was a 1,500 square foot studio. And it was, it was great. It was kind of like, it was my lab. That was probably the best way to put it. And it's kind of where I really cultivated styling and really decided how much I really loved styling, as opposed to the selling aspect of it. And I still love the treasure hunting of it, but I can spend hours with my photographer, and we would just do these amazing shots. And that's kind of where I got that bug of like, you know, just styling and capturing light and images and photos and mood making. I'm really about kind of creating atmosphere and mood, like atmospheric design. I love, you know, being transported. And I think living in Chicago, as long as I went to school in Chicago, you know, I think it's so important to have these environments where you walk in and you're transported. Your home is just, it's just you. It's just, you open the door and it's just kind of you. This is the flipper kitchen. So we decided to kind of keep everything white, eventually maybe take out the floors, but my husband wanted, you know, kind of a calm, basic white kitchen after, you know, when you walk in, it's a little crazy. So I agreed to that, which is cool. And so we kind of just basically kept everything from the flipper, and that's fine. And so you'll just see tidbits of my personality, our personalities in here. And it's very functional. So I actually was thinking, you know, I'm a stylist and I should style this kitchen. And I was telling him earlier, like, I should probably remove the ugly basket or all this stuff. But I was like, you know what? I kind of want to pay homage to people like us who have small kitchens and are functional. Like, you know, we don't have big kitchens. And so this is kind of just this is how my kitchen looks like every day when there's not dishes. So there's just all these little pieces and that make it functional. And I learned a lot of my little tidbits, like all these weird little things from our tiny kitchen in Paris was actually this size, which is pretty crazy. This kitchen is 8x9, very limited on space. So there's all these little weird tips and tricks that we do to kind of maximize it. This is not for fashion. These are all things that we all use in our kitchen. These are really cool botanical prints. I have more and more of them. I'd love to do a wall one day of them, but these came from an estate of a botanist. And so I wanted to do wallpaper, but because I'm trying to find the happy marriage medium and not wallpaper and keep it kind of semi-serene, I thought that these would kind of mimic kind of a wallpaper vibe. Because I don't think design should be so stuffy, and you'll find a lot of weird, crazy things in my house. This is my new favorite thing, my toile with the aliens on it. It's like, which is crazy. It's called Alien Abduction Toile. So if you look closely, there's like a little alien and the spaceship's taking them up. So kitchens are kind of fun places where you could do whatever you want. And then this is Jean-Luc Godard, who I love, who's also like Jean Cocteau. He's my other favorite guy. So, you know, you see like fancy French toile and stuff like that. And I see it and it makes me laugh. So it's mainly because of it. It just cracks me up. And because I am a kid of the 70s and it was all like UFOs and stuff like that. So this little stuff, I thought was so cool because if you look closer, you're like, wait, what's going on in this toile? So normally, you know, it would be like flowers and people, but it's just little aliens abducting people, which I just think is funny. Someday, you know, if we decide to stay or do it, you know, we might revamp the kitchen and do it, but I don't know, you know, it's an 8x9 kitchen. So it's completely functional with just all these weird little tidbits that I've added to just that make me kind of smile and happy about it. Well, when I started out, it was a lot different when I started, you know, doing antiques and stuff. The world was a lot different and there weren't a lot of me's. It was when I started out 10 years ago, it was 12 years ago, it was mid-century modern. So I could find a lot of things easily because no one really wanted them, which sounds terrible. But they were more into, you know, like more mid-century modern Danish Scandinavian vibe. So it was a lot easier for me to find a lot of things. We did have a condo in Paris for 20 years. And so a lot of the smaller treasures and stuff have come from there. And I used to source from there for clients and stuff like that. But a lot of our stuff is from there. But I think that kind of having, you know, a place in Paris, it was tiny, you know, so we didn't really vamp that out a lot. Our place was literally probably as big as this room. It was maybe 300 square feet and it was very humble. I think this business, interior design, and vintage dealers, and the Instagram world of like instant, like thrifting and Facebook Marketplace, I think it's a slippery slope, and I rode the slope of, you know, finding all these things, and then how some of these things can actually take over your life because you're always buying things and thinking where to place this, and you know, you're kind of being dictated by these things. I have kind of what we were talking about, I've come to like, hey, I'm kind of good with these things. I don't need to keep constantly changing and buying more things for myself. I only buy things for clients now, which is nice, which is really nice. We're gonna go up to the second floor. One of the reasons why we loved this place, because it actually had 2 floors, and most of our apartments only had 1 floor. So it kind of gave us more of a feeling of a home and the luxury of going up and down, which when you live in an apartment, going up and down on stairs is pretty unique. So come on up. This is kind of what we're talking about, where I tried to make it a little more serene. So this is all painted tallow, which is one of my favorite colors from Farrow and Ball. It's this creamy color. All right, so now we're in my bedroom, where I've tried to create a sense of calm, not so much energy as downstairs, where you see more of the reds and the blacks and all this stuff. So in my own way, it's more calming, and I love blue. So my last bedroom was blue, so I tried to incorporate blue in here, and I wanted to do something neutral as to the walls. So this is Farrow and Ball New White, and I wanted to do a neutral because if I did want to do another color, because I do love textiles and I do love color, I can always change my textiles out, because previously this room before white was chocolate brown. So I painted, when I moved in here, it was chocolate brown with red, which was pretty more dramatic, like crazy drama. So I decided to fall on a nice neutral color, and then at any time I can change out all of my textiles. But right now it's blue, and I love blue, so I'm really happy with it. My bedroom, it's actually the largest room in the house. It's actually my bedroom, my office, and my closet. So there's a lot going on in here. So a lot of my office is in here. And then I took the door off here, and then there's more office stuff in here, and then more books. So my design books. And then part of my edited maximalism thing, just to keep my husband's brain okay, I created this little altar, which is like all my little favorite tchotchke things, you know, that I draw from and creativity from, all of my favorite things, so they're not all out. This is actually going to get painted blue, but this was the leopard wallpaper I was telling you about, and this is amazing. These antlers, I have 2 of these, but I couldn't fit them in here, which is sad. These are antler shelves, and they came from the same estate as the Venetian headboard. So it's just a really cool, unique. That's why I want to paint it blue, so you could really see the antler. But yeah, there is more leopard. I'm sorry. You'll have to come back when it's blue, and then I have shell stuff to hang up. And this is Jean Cocteau. So I have a lot of things in my home I kind of have meaning to me, and I draw upon. So a lot of them are kind of like, I don't know what would be the weird word for it, but that's Jean Cocteau, and I draw endless sorts of inspiration from, and they're both taken by Man Ray. This is me and my husband when we were dating. We're really young in the 90s. And then there's a little De Royale beetle from Paris. There's just all these little things that I love, and you know, and me trying not to put them everywhere in the house. I'm trying to condense them and put them out. So it's kind of like an altar. Maybe that's the best way to put it, huh? So this is the other side of the bedroom, and this is actually behind the blue velvet. It's my closet. So it's hiding shoes and everything. I had an amazing bolt of Italian blue velvet, and then I just decided to go wild with it. And it solved a problem. I needed a big closet, because in these little homes, you have tiny little closets. Hence, there's like a little altar and a work thing, because that's a really tiny closet. So I decided to make a closet behind here and hang some velvet. This is actually a very old Italian piece. It was a wedding gift, and it's probably from the It's actually Dutch, I apologize. It's probably, I think it's 17th century, which is crazy. And so there's more clothes in here as well. As you can tell, I like textiles a lot, and fabric and curtains and drapes, and I use them a lot in, you know, my design work with clients a lot. I think color and pattern and texture and layer are super important, and you can do it with, you don't have to do a lot of color. As long as you have color, texture, pattern, and layer, it could all be the same color. It could be white, it could be neutral, it could be brown, it could be, you don't have to be vibrant and red and saturated and all that. But if you have those elements, I think a room will come alive. And I think those are the things, like all these little textures are the things that are going to make a room come alive and like speak instead of become flat, you know, and look like anybody else's room. So this is an interesting piece. This came out of Amazing Estate. This is Moroccan, or I think she told me she got it on Iran, but it was another North Shore Chicago estate, and they had a ballroom upstairs, which was amazing. She took me through this huge mansion. It was right on the lake, and they had a big ballroom upstairs, and I bought a lot of pieces from her. Her mother had traveled the world, and this was one of the pieces that I got, and I love it. It's probably from the 20s, I think she was telling me that it is. I don't know. It's a vibe, right? That's a total vibe. And this chaise lounge is, I got covered in blue velvet. This was before all the other blue. As you could tell, I like blue. So this I got at an auction, and then I just recovered it in velvet. Same with these dudes I love a lot. This, I don't know what it was. I got it at an auction as well, and I just threw a plant in it. I don't know if it was a table or whatever, but I love the shape and the color of these guys. Odalesque. So she's a famous French painting. She's not original. She's a print, but I've always loved her because I just love her color palette actually a lot. I always draw from it. She's got these beautiful, you know, saffron and blue and yellow and ivory and brown. I just always love it. But yeah, it's a famous French painting, Odalesque. And she's ginormous. I think I got her at Randolph Market too as well. She's really big, I forget. And get really cool stuff. This is actually my desk. So this is my office. Like, I'll move this junk off and I work on here. Like, this is because this is part of my office. I'll put my laptop on here. So this is my little office chair. But this chaise it's just totally like, no. I mean, it's just a beautiful piece that I've always had. And now we live in a smaller place and it fits up here. The dogs love it. It's like the most regal dog bed ever, right? But I will sit in it and read. So a lot of my work stuff is in the cabinet, and then, you know, I do a lot of, you know, any kind of work that I have here, you know, sourcing or layouts or whatever, color selection. It's actually done usually right here. And all of like my little office is in through here. So this room is like a lot. It's a lot. It's a closet. It's an office. It's a little bit of, you know, storage. It's a little bit of tchotchke altar. It's my bedroom. It's a lot, actually. And it's actually the largest room in the house, which is pretty crazy. My father-in-law got this. So I was saying that he had all this amazing art. So he lived there in the 50s and the 60s, and he also bought all this art when you could buy it, right? So, and now it's worth so much money and it's hard to buy, but he would just buy these, you know, at flea markets when he lived there. And so he amassed quite a little hoard of them. And so when he passed away, we got a lot actually. And so this is one of the pieces. We just got this. This was hiding, and so we finally just got this in, and I love the blue. And I love the color palette. So it's La Boheme, which is pretty amazing. This is actually the first thing I ever bought in Paris on my honeymoon. I bought these with my husband. This is when I went to the big flea market like we were talking about, because you have to go when you go to Paris to the big flea market. These crazy nudie cuties. But they're these nudes. Now, don't laugh, because this one's cracked. And there's a reason why it's cracked. And I kind of don't want to change it, and I'll tell you the story. But these ladies they're artist models, and they're really crazy looking, aren't they? Do you see them? But this is the first thing I ever bought in Paris in 1999 in my honeymoon at the flea market. The stupid story of why this is cracked and I can't change it because it kind of reminds me of, this is like the plague. So this is COVID. So these were in my last apartment and we lived in the middle floor. And during COVID 2020, my neighbor decided they're working from home, and he got a treadmill and he put it above us. And so our floor, I was like, our floors are shaking. Can you please stop? And then our art started falling off the wall. And so that cracked. And for some reason, I was like, that just kind of reminds me, like I have to kind of keep it because it's like this weird moment in time. Like I need to fix the frame, but then I was like, it's just such a stupid story of how we lived back then. Like my art fell off the wall because no one could leave their house because my, neighbor got a treadmill. Anyways, but yeah, this is the first little thing that I bought in Paris and I love it. I think home is really, like I said before, I think it sounds cheesy, but I really think it's just kind of like, it is such a personal, it's your own sanctuary. It's kind of a poem to yourself, and I think if you really follow what you love, you buy things that you love, and you kind of turn off all of the chaos, around you through social media and the outside, and kind of, buy things that you love, and you open that door and you're like, wow, this is me. I know that my home won't appeal to everybody. I know that my home is pretty unique, and that's okay. These are things that bring me joy and they make me happy. I think that is honestly the most important thing, of kind of creating a sanctuary in your own space, and then finding that nice balance, of just creating a home that makes you feel, that it's you. I think that's the most important thing. Hey, Homeworthy, thanks for touring my home. See you next time. Bye.
Today on Homeworthy, we're stepping inside the Minnesota home of content creator Sapphire Anderson. As a new mom caring for her twin boys, Sapphire dedicated herself to thoughtfully curating every corner of her home with thrifted treasures and sentimental pieces. The result is a cozy, peaceful space that beautifully reflects her family's cultural identity and heritage. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Sapphire Anderson. Welcome to our home in Red Wing, Minnesota. Let me show you around. Hi, my name is Sapphire Anderson, and welcome to my family home here in Minnesota. I live here with my husband and our two little twin boy rascals who are 2.5 years old. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, but I grew up in Idaho when I was 7, and just kind of moved around after that. Lived in Florida, Chicago, which is where I met my now husband, Tyler. And now we're here in Red Wing. When Tyler and I were in Green Bay, we wanted to move closer to his family. We came to Red Wing and we actually only looked at 3 total homes, this one being the very first one. We walked through it and after about an hour said, this is the one. So this is our entryway. This is honestly one of my favorite spaces in the house, and it is obviously the first space that we saw when we walked in, aside from the front porch, and the staircase alone had us blown away. The woodwork, the banister, the spindles. When we first moved in, there were some awful stair treads on there, carpet treads, but we have since replaced them. It's one of my favorite spaces, and it's because I get to showcase a lot of fun pieces that are dear to me, and that I've just collected from Marketplace or thrifting, like this console table. It's pretty hefty. I'm not quite sure where it's from, but I did get it on Marketplace for a bargain. And it just, holds regular entryway items. This I like to call my candle drawer. I always love lighting candles throughout the day, especially at night. We don't turn on a lot of lights, so I really enjoy having smell goods. This typewriter is very, very old, and we actually got it from my husband's sister-in-law. It was her grandmother's, and unfortunately she is now passed, but she had some really beautiful pieces, and she asked if I wanted this, and I was like, yeah. So that sits right here. Behind is a photograph of James Baldwin. He is everybody's uncle. He is an incredible, incredible writer, activist. And our boys are actually named after him. So it's really special. And it's actually kind of fun. I didn't do this on purpose, but I set him here, and then I originally had this in the front room, and then I changed it and put it right in front of him. It just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of is really sweet. So I've got some books that I've ordered from eBay, lots of eBay ordering lately. I really love ordering books from eBay just because most of the time they're in pretty good condition and a bargain. You can find really beautiful designer books for a quarter, less than a quarter of brand new price. On top here, I have this really beautiful antique African mask, and I actually stumbled upon the company who sells the mask, who actually are no longer in business. And it's crazy how it happened. I was just searching for masks and came across their website, and it said going out of business, and their prices were slashed to the max. So I searched and searched and searched, and just really, I don't know, I fell in love with this one. I love the earthy, obviously a lot of African pieces are earth toned, right? But this one, I love how it's mostly dark, almost black, and then the eyes kind of like glow. And if you look really, really closely, he's kind of like his grill is showing there. So I thought that was kind of fun. Next to that, I have this really stunning ceramic vase. It's from a friend on Instagram. She is a ceramicist in the Portland area, I believe. Her name is Karma Ferrier, and she gifted me this beautiful piece. She asked me, what kind of style I wanted it to be, and I really love like vintage pottery pieces. I love the urn shape. I feel like the urn shape is a very antique shape. Here's another little, or I shouldn't say it's little, but it's mighty. It's pretty hefty. This solid wood bust, African bust. And this was also an eBay find. I'm not quite sure who made it, but it just spoke to me. I feel really empowered just having it here front and center in the entryway. So I kind of like her sitting behind the hydrangeas too, kind of peeking through. This is another one of my Favorite pieces. So I found this on Marketplace. And my best friend picked it up for me, and it's just so funny because, you know, when you're really into Marketplace, you will go to the lengthiest length there is. And, you know, I'm not afraid to ask a friend to pick things up. But yeah, she picked that up for me. It's just beautiful alabaster. In a couple places in the house, throughout the house, we've got a really beautiful stained glass windows. I actually base now a lot of what I bring in off of the colors that are on the stained glass, which is terrifying and exciting at the same time. I really love seeing people's homes filled with color, but I'm always so nervous about doing it in my own home. But I feel like having a white base and then, you know, pulling in the random bright colors is always a good way to go. So up here on this bottom landing, I've got this really stunning print. It's by a Black artist that I found on Instagram. Actually, you know, this is interesting. A lot of Black people, like in Africa, they will twist their hair like this to stretch it out, and they bind it with like some sort of like string, a tight string. And yeah, that allows it to kind of stretch out when it's wet, and then once it's dry, it stays that way. But yeah, I just love the rawness of it. You know, her hair is not done up and glamorous. It's just her and her hair. I know this is, I wouldn't say it's controversial because not a lot of people in the States even know what it is, but I believe it's called a portiere, and a lot of people in Europe have them in entryways or right above doorways, like a front door, or just any walkway or pathway that brings in a lot of draft. And to be honest, it does kind of we do get a little bit of draft in this front room and then the entryway a little bit because the house is so old, right? But yeah, I just love how bold it is and unique. And I just luckily had a random rod, and it just drags over like this. It allows me to bring in some pattern and some color without having to, you know, drench a wall and then be terrified about it and then have to paint it all over again. This mirror is definitely a statement piece, and it is the very first, I think, maybe the second, if not the first, thing that I got off of Marketplace when we first moved in 2020. And yeah, it was a whole whopping $25, and I couldn't believe it. This bench I actually recently got a couple weeks ago. It's actually a pair. The other one is outside waiting to be sprayed, but you can still kind of see where I missed, but it was hot pink. And I feel kind of bad that I sprayed it because the person had sprayed it right before she listed it, but I couldn't do the hot pink. So I just sprayed it matte black and thought that it would pop nicely. The cushion on here is actually a cushion from a couple chairs that we had outside on the porch, and which we no longer use, and it's literally the same size as the seat. So bonus there. But I just love how, you know, wrought iron really just makes such a chic and bold statement amongst other pieces that may be softer. So when we first moved in, I mean, right off the bat, it seemed perfect. We weren't looking for a really big fixer upper or anything like that. But as the months and then a year or two moved on, I started tinkering with plans to kind of shift things around aesthetically. No like knocking down walls or anything like that, but like we did knock down the kitchen cabinets. So I guess there was one knockdown, but we updated the kitchen, and that's really the biggest project that we've had. The other big thing that we've done is probably just paint everything white so that it was nice and bright versus the kind of dim brown tan situation that was going on when we first moved in. This is my sacred space. This is my most favorite space in the house. When we first moved in, my vision for it was exactly what it is now, a library situation. But we didn't call it the library until recently. It's just because, you know, design takes time, right? Like, it's seen a lot of different furniture and styles, but this, what it is right now, is here to stay. So I just really wanted to elevate it even more. You know, they say the trick to making a space feel bigger and taller is to bring things all the way up. So we actually just raised these bookshelves, and yeah, the ceilings in here are 9 feet tall, but it feels so much bigger now, and also at the same time like a warm hug. This is where I sit every single morning. If I'm not outside on the porch, I'm in the chair here in the corner, coffee, and I've got all my design books here. We've got books about racial justice. I've got some Black romance books that I'm really excited to jump into. And yeah, obviously we've got a shelf or two for the boys. They have to have their own space too. I think this is something, I don't want to say rare that people do, but not a lot of people do it. They hang prints or just things in general on the face of their bookcases. But I just think it's so unique, and it makes it stand out more. And it's also a good way to hide empty space until you can actually fill your bookcase with books. But I think even after, like, I get more books for behind here, I'm going to leave it because it's just so, I love the gold, the old gold frame makes it pop. But I found this on Marketplace, and it is an antique painting. I'm not sure who it's by, but it's just really beautiful. I love, it's almost like impressionist style, and a lot of those paintings are very dark, very dim, and I love that. It's definitely a mood. Over here, this sofa, oh my goodness, I spent months and months and months just going back and forth on whether or not to get this one or another one, or find one on Marketplace that's vintage, because I really love vintage and antique pieces. But it is a modern piece, and it's from Lulu and Georgia. It's their Fabian sofa, and it's absolutely perfect. I actually really love the modern box, somewhat slope arm here at the back shape of it, amongst everything else, like all the antique and vintage pieces that we have. It's just it's super cozy. And it's honestly, it's the boys, their favorite spot to jump up, and they'll, you know, it's really sweet. They look out the window and watch the cars and the garbage trucks go by. On the floor, we've got this stunning vintage Bokhara rug that I found on eBay, and I still can't believe I found it because these things they're hefty and the price is hefty too. But I made an offer, which is something that I stand by. I always make an offer on things. I follow somebody on social media who specializes in antique and vintage and antique rugs, specifically Bokhara rugs. And I sent it to her. She asked me to send her a photo of like underneath the rug just to see like the thread count. Yeah, tell me how old it is. So if you're ever interested in how old your rug is, just look under it. I think you have to like measure an inch area and count the threads in it, which is kind of tedious because they're very, very tiny. But it's worth it. I think it's really fun and comforting knowing that like this is a hand knotted rug. Like, how cool is that? A lot of library spaces nowadays, and way back when, have an office section in some part of it, and I really wanted that in here. I don't work from home, or my husband doesn't work from home, but I do think it is good to practice sitting at a desk to be on the computer or to write a letter or something like that. But I wanted something old, antique, vintage at least, and I found this really sweet desk that this family used as a kid's project desk. So the top of it is actually wood, and it's covered in like hot pink paint and blue and yellow, all sorts of scratches and dings on it. And there were different knobs on here, but I changed them out with some hefty brass knobs that I had laying around I got at like a restore one year. And I believe the legs on these are what they call barley twist legs. And I just think it's so fun. Like, it adds texture and makes it more fun instead of, these clean, straight, boxy lines. So the top, I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to sand it down and refinish it, right? But then I was like, no, that's another thing that I love is old pieces as is. Like, as is pieces, just they tell way more history than bringing them in and stripping them down of their stories and memories. But I did decide to at least cover the top because the paint marks weren't doing it for me. But I found this marble slab, which was actually a coffee table. And it was about a foot or two wider. And our contractor, he cut it down for me to size and then placed it on top of the desk so that it wouldn't, he caulked it. It's not going to move. It's just perfect. I love the sheen. I love the white. It enables everything that I have on here to pop and stand out. These two sitting chairs are a dream come true. Honestly, I just kid you not, I just picked them up like 3 days ago. I drove an hour and a half to get them in a very small town, kind of similar to Red Wing, actually, a river town, Austin, Minnesota. And they're from a family. They live in an antique home as well. And they've had these chairs for almost 25 years. They moved in 2000, I think they said. And they had them in their bedroom. They have several kids, so they've seen everything. They've been through the ringer, but they are so incredibly sturdy. Like, they don't bud. The bones are incredible, and it just amazes me every single time I pick up, an antique piece and it's in immaculate condition, because it's like, how old is this thing? Before they had it, the wife said that she got it from her principal. So who knows how long he had it, and who had it before he had it. So But yeah, I just love how they're matching and they're just the right size for in here. It's not really, that big of a room, but I love the conversation that it will bring and then it does bring visually. So yeah, and on them, we've got these verdure, I think that's how you say it, verdure style pillowcases. So I found these pillowcases on Etsy from a lady in Wisconsin. Her Etsy shop name is Pillow Talk, I believe. Kind of cute. I am obsessed with French verdure tapestries, textiles. But yeah, this is my safe space. This is my safe spot. Having a safe space is really important to me, and how I went about doing that was just including things that and styles that represented me as a Black woman, as a Black human being. Stuff like I've got some African pieces, I've got a couple Trinidadian pieces, which is, near and dear to me as I am Trinidadian. So off of the library and also off of the entryway is the dining room, and it, I believe, is the largest room on the main floor. I love that it's centered, front and center from everything else. I have had a lot of fun just imagining what this space could be, and even, going through a couple different versions of what I thought it would be. But this is the current situation. It's super fun. So this table I am just so obsessed with. I really love antique pine tables, stripped pine specifically. But unfortunately, those are more common in Europe, which is fine. One day I'll get there. But until then, I found this on Marketplace for an incredible price. And it was actually like orange when we got it, and just like 2 or 3 inches wider. So we sat with it as is for a while until I figured out what I wanted to do with it. And I stripped it all and sanded it all, the edges, the turned legs, which was a lot of work, and a tiny sander. But I stripped it and sanded it, and then actually lived with it stripped for a little while longer, and then stained for it that I wanted, stained it, and it was still a little bit off. It was like reading too gray for me. And then I found a company called Fids and Sons. They sell their waxes on Amazon, and the finish is a wax. It's a wax polish that you actually only have to put on once. Like you put a goop of it on the table and you rub it in, and then you just rub it in a little bit more, and that's it. And within 30 minutes, it's already cured, which is like gold to me, because, a lot of stains and finishes, you have to wait like at least half a day or 24 hours to be able to, use it or have water on it or whatever. But this wax is amazing. These chairs, these Windsor chairs, are kind of special to me, actually. So these I also found on Marketplace. 4 of them I found on Marketplace, and they were from a lady all the way in Wisconsin area. I think she's in the Green Bay area. So obviously that's super far away. I've never driven that far to pick anything up from Marketplace, but one day I shared them on my social media, and I was like, oh my gosh, these chairs are amazing. Gosh, it's so far away. And I received a message from just a beautifully gracious human being who lived in the Green Bay area. And she was like, hey, I am going to be in the Twin Cities area next week. How about I pick these up for you and meet you and call it a day? And I was like, no way. And at first I'm like talking to Tyler and my mother-in-law like, is this weird? What's going on here? And, you know, I realized quickly that it's actually a Midwestern thing. The Midwestern nice is definitely a thing. Over here in this wall is our hutch, and it's very interesting because this is actually not a dining hutch. It's an antique cupboard is what they would call it, you know, 100 years ago. Or wardrobe. It used to have doors. You can see like on the sides here, there are old nails in here, and then where the hinges were. The only thing I thought of was glassware. Like, I just love crystal clear glass against old antique pine or oak. I just think it's just so beautiful and classic. But yeah, this, we did not do anything to it. And it's also another piece that's just structurally sound, incredibly sound. Like, it just doesn't, it's mind blowing how, these old pieces were built. This is one of my favorite pieces. It is a French Tian bowl. And it is, I'm not sure how old it is, but it's definitely antique. I found this one on eBay, not Etsy. And it's another piece that I had just been searching for a long time for. I promised myself, you know, when I want something really special that is antique or vintage, I'm not just gonna get, you know, I'll make a dupe or find a dupe for certain things, but for beautiful pieces like this, especially pottery, which I have a huge passion for, I will wait. And I have this like manifestation thing that I do, or technique, I guess I should say, and I just like keep searching, or like save ones that I find even if they're out of my price range. And one day I was on eBay and I was just like, oh, let's see if there's any on here. And this one came up at an unbelievable price, and I actually offered lower and they countered, and I accepted. I was like, I'm never gonna find a Tian bowl like this in this size too. Like, and you could do so many different things with this. Nowadays, you know, we could use it in the garden to collect tomatoes and bring it up to the house. I could use it on the dining table as a centerpiece, or just like off to the side here. It could be used as to hold, you know, wine bottles with ice in it for a party. But back then, people used it for, it was, I think they used some of these, there are smaller ones that were used for dough, I think, or milk and washing. Gosh, there were a lot of different uses for these bowls. Right here is our bar area, and typically, you know, people actually have like a bar cart or something like that, but I wanted something different. I wanted something with maximum storage, just something unique. And a dresser is such a cool way to hold wine, or just like stuff you don't want people seeing in general. Like, just throw it in the drawer and call it a day. Like, don't worry about it. I've got like linens in here. There isn't any alcohol in there yet, but yeah, it's a cool storage piece, and a conversation piece as well. And up top, we've got a couple printed images that are dear to us, the kings, and yeah, it's just a really fun corner. I love it. In this corner area, I had a tough time trying to figure out what to put here because it's such a small spot, and small corners in general are kind of tricky. Like, what do you put there? Like a hanging plant or like a floor vase or something. But I really wanted to be able to showcase books. I love books and I love the way they look. I love the way interior design books look, especially, old garden ones. But yeah, so I found this accent table console thing on Marketplace. Everything is from Marketplace. So I found this on Marketplace, and it needs a little bit of work. We have to be careful when we open the drawers here. But it works. Like I keep keys in here, or we've got the stain treater for the boys, different odds and ends that are in there. I replaced the hardware that was on here because it was very dark and you just couldn't really see it very much, and it just didn't really stand out to me, and I wanted something to pop against the mahogany color of the console. So yeah, below I've just got some I've got a gourd piece that I thrifted here in town. I do think that I'm not quite sure if it's how old it is, but I just really love the pattern to it. It kind of reminds me of a zebra. But a couple decor books there, and cookbooks up top here on this cookbook here, which I really love. Green is my favorite color, which is, you probably would never know because we don't have a lot of green, but I wanted it to stand out here. But on top of it is this beautiful vase that's got curled legs. It's a crystal glass vase, and I found this on eBay. I saw it in a designer's home online, who I just really am just enamored by their talent, and they often collect just like the most beautiful crystal pieces. And all I did was search the image, which is a really good trick. If you don't know the name of something, or you can't find something from a brand, if you have access to take a picture of it and put it into Google, and all these searches will come up. And eBay had several of them, different versions, but this was the one that I wanted, and it was a massive steal. So yeah, I use it for water. I typically use it for flowers though, but yeah, I love it. And then on this wall here, I've got two really, really, really beautiful African masks that I got from the same antique shop in Eau Claire that I got the antique botanicals from. Antique Emporium is the name of the shop, and I just love, again, like the mask in the entryway, the deep brown and the lighter brown areas is just like, oh yeah, I like this one on the eyes is the same as the one in the front. How funny. It's just really beautiful. Adds texture and warmth, and also just speaks to Black culture. So it wasn't until, honestly, I realized that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't in school anymore. I was going to school part-time, but then I got pregnant and realized, well, that's not the direction that I should be going with 2 little ones coming. I think knowing that I was going to be at home 24/7 in this big box by myself with 2 babies to have conversations with, I wanted it to feel like me. I wanted to feel safe and comforted and, just at ease. And I want to look at pretty things all day aside from dirty diapers. So my design style, I would say, is just a mixture of everything. Cottagecore, British, primitive, vintage, antique. Also just a mixture of a blend of things that make me feel safe and seen and comforted. I think that's a style too, making your home, a safe haven refuge by including different eras or cultural pieces. This is our kitchen, and I honestly pinch myself every time I come in here because it's just so different than what it was when we moved in. So we did do a little light renovation. Over here on the back wall, there were cabinets on the wall close up to the ceiling, and they were almost this color of this basket, really dark. And then below, the cabinets were the same color as well. Just a super dingy counter space and a massive kitchen island on the wall opposite. Because there's only one window in here, it doesn't let in a lot of natural light. And I need light when I'm cooking. I love to cook. I'm a baker as well. So I was like, we need to knock things down. So we knocked down the cupboards and painted the lowers. We added butcher block counter top, a new sink, and painted it white because it was a tan color in here. And then just recently, just to kind of draw the eye to different levels, and in a way it opens up the space more, we added some plates on the wall and then a pot rack suspending from the ceiling, which is super fun and cool. And it really made this side of the kitchen stand out in a good way. Before, I didn't enjoy cooking, and now I feel like I feel like I can enjoy myself, standing over the stove, stirring in a pot or something, and, walk over and open the cafe curtains and look out at the kids playing. And I can see now there's a light here now. But yeah, it's just super cozy, just like I wanted it. We didn't have this island before. So this actually wasn't an island. It's another special piece. It was actually an antique dresser that had 6 drawers. So I removed the bottom 2 drawers because I wanted to be able to just set some cookbooks in there. These ones are just vintage, like bread books, really, really old recipes. I think it's really fun. So I added a couple slabs of, I think this is like plywood or MDF board. I have yet to paint the inside, but I painted it. Another vintage antique piece that I painted, but I can count on one hand, so it's okay. But I wanted to still keep the space open and bright. This was very dark, the color of the inside of the bottom here. So it still felt really closed off. And because it's such a big piece, a substantial piece, with the dark tone and it being so big, it was just like, no, like a brighter color is gonna do the trick and open it up. So I painted it the same color, which is from Farrow and Ball. I just had it colored matched. And then the top of it, I really love this. This is a quartz slab that was gifted to me actually from a dear friend off of social media, and I just it's very, very, very special to me. They just remodeled their incredible home, and their kitchen is just adorned in this stone, and they had extra, and she knew that I was wanting a marble slab for the counter, or for the island, sorry. So yeah, it's perfect. Like, I know a lot of people have marble everywhere, like marble countertops and the marble island, but I think it really helps break things apart and kind of like sections things off in a way. And it plays really well with the peel and stick, if you can believe it, peel and stick floor tile that we have, which is like a faux marble print. Behind here is the coffee station. So this was a blank wall, but it had a massive rolling kitchen island that sat out to about here, and it had a deep lip on it that I think they used like as a bar top with stools. So we obviously got rid of that. It's now my husband's. It sits in the garage. He uses it to work on his bikes out there. But I wanted just a really sweet coffee station and a place where I could also display, you know, thrifts from the years that I've collected and found. And I really am in love with Devil's Kitchen's brass rail, but not the price. So I just found a way to DIY. This is just a copper rod from Menards, and I ordered some really beautiful brass brackets to hold it up here from Etsy, a small shop on Etsy. The shelves, these are just plain old 2x12 boards from Menards that I stained in the same wax as the dining table, actually, the Fids and Sons wax. And yeah, I love it. It's like a mini coffee shop, honestly. Like, it's so fun and cozy, and I love being able to, like, you know, it's functional down below, but then I can change things up top in terms of style. Below, this is where the microwave is. I am just, you know, there are certain appliances that I'm okay with seeing, like, you know, the fridge and the stove. But microwave and like dishwasher, those gotta go. So I found a way to really just kind of mask them and hide them, but it's still being functional. So I got this fabric. It's just a really lightweight fabric from Joann Fabrics, and sewed a little pocket at the top and just kind of jimmied these curtain rods onto this. This is like an IKEA stand from Marketplace. And yeah, we just slide it open, and it has 3 drawers in there that we also keep some kitchen storage in. But yeah, it just adds a little fun little effect, I guess. And then we also did it over here with the dishwasher. So I know it's not everybody's thing, but I don't want to see it. So coming back around the house is the back deck. The deck was already here and built when we bought the house, which was a major plus. It was done beautifully. We actually just added this absolutely incredible pergola It's by a brand named Toya Grid, and they're Canadian based, and they sell these really awesome, just beastly brackets, and you just get the wood, and it's so simple to put together. But it just adds such a like cool vibe, and honestly is like another room to the house. But I do like to entertain when I can, which is right now very rare with two toddlers. But I also found this on Marketplace recently, a trestle style table. This is actually from Mexico. On here I kind of did, I'm super into Pinterest and decorating, and I found this style on there that I wanted to try and recreate. And we always have potted just sweet little plants out here on the deck during the summertime. But this year I wanted to take advantage of my sweet neighbor across the road. She has two really beautiful hydrangea, one hydrangea bush and a hydrangea tree, and they just produce like the most incredibly beautiful and sized hydrangeas. I'm actually hoping to have a little birthday celebration, and I think this is how I'm gonna style it, just like this with the hydrangeas. Thanks so much for coming to our home, Homeworthy. See you next time.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Vanessa. Welcome to my home in Michigan. I can't wait to show you around.
Hi, I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we're now offering a membership plan that gives our supporters early and exclusive access to new videos.
Hi, Homeworthy.
I'm Roz.
You're here at my home in Los Angeles.
Come on in. I can't wait to show you around.
With this membership, we invite you to open more doors, discovering new homes, rooms, and personalities available only to those with the keys to our guest house. You'll be part of a community of people who are just as passionate as you are about interior design. To access all of this exclusive content, simply click the Join button below to become a member today. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Cheveri-Gratz, and we are here in my 1926 registered historic Tudor on Grosse Ile, Michigan. My husband and I have historically moved a lot for our careers. His old job actually brought us to different parts of Texas and different parts of California over the last 7 years. Fairly recently, he though found a new career and put us both in remote career positions. So for the first time ever, or at least since we've been together, we had full control over where we lived. And one night, drinking a little bit of wine on the sofa, we were scrolling Trulia just for fun, just to see what real estate was out there, because we love looking at real estate, love seeing what's out in the market. And we happened upon this absolutely beautiful 1926 Tudor on a little island in Michigan. And as fate would have it, we were already scheduled to come into town about a week later, as this is where my husband's family is from. And we were coming into town for a wedding and decided, let's just go look at it. Let's just see what it's about, just for fun. Nothing serious. We were living in Dallas, Texas. We owned a home. We'd only been there for 2 years. And the minute we walked into this house, it sold us. We knew it, the charm, the creaky floors, everything about it just gave us chills, and we put an offer the next day. So when you first walk into the house, you can kind of get a good visual of everything. What I love and what we did very strategically is we placed this vintage piano here. This is honestly one of my favorite secondhand finds. I got this for free at an estate sale. It didn't sell, and so they just wanted to offload it. And I took lessons as a kid. I am now taking lessons via YouTube and slowly but surely learning, but I just think it's so beautiful here. And honestly, the wall space was so perfect for it. And I love that it's just an awesome place to display art, again, secondhand finds. And it's a nice little welcome into the house. It's really funny when we host people will usually sit down and play around on it. And so we're gonna go into the living room from here. Living room is really the heart of the home and one of my favorite spaces in this house. I really wanted this space to feel cozy and warm, and I wanted it to be the landing hub for when everyone came in and we gathered. So we collected, just in my opinion, beautiful pieces. I have a very clear color palette. You'll notice as you go through the house, I'm a huge fan of green. It is a neutral for me. And I do a lot of brass, a lot of woods. I like to mix textures and different textiles and things of that sort. And then as you come this way, you'll see one of my favorite projects, which is our gallery wall. Gallery wall is something I've had in every single home that we have lived in. This is probably my favorite though. Everything here is either from a local artist, someone I connected with online, or something I found at a thrift store or an estate sale. I just really love collecting beautiful pieces and pairing it with, again, something new and old. So this is definitely a very proud portion of the house for me. So when it comes to gallery wall creation, I actually like a little bit of chaos. I do very little planning with gallery walls. I'll typically figure out what my centerpiece is and maybe a couple surrounding pieces. You'll likely find me laying them out just on the floor, getting a bird's eye view, stepping on top of the furniture to get an idea of what it would look like. But for the most part, I like to just play around with it. I like it to be very organic, and I honestly change it very often. If you were to take all of these frames down, there's probably 100 holes in the wall from me moving things around, trial and error. But honestly, that's what I love about interior decorating. It's the trial and error. It's figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. And this is probably not going to be the last rendition. There's going to be some changes, but I just love the flexibility and the fluidness of just throwing some art on the wall and seeing how it looks. These are pine cone candle holders. I got these at a Goodwill this last holiday season. They're metal and they were just so unique and fun. We are surrounded by pine trees, a lot of evergreens on our property, and it just felt right. Even though they were technically holiday decor, they feel like year-round decor in our house. So fun fact, historically, I was never a fan of built-in shelving. It felt like I was forced to put things on the walls, and I never loved that. However, we walked into this house and they had 2 symmetrical bookshelves on either side of the living room. And these were actually additions. They're not original to the home. I'm not quite sure what year they were put in, but they were just so perfectly placed. And I just felt really inspired to use these as just like the canvas for all of the things I've collected, for all of the special things that are either from my family or my husband's or just we found during our travels. So you'll find a collection of a little bit of everything. I've got candles and books and art and antiques. We actually have a really special little memento here. This is a ceramic and brass owl that my grandmother gave me. She is originally from England, but lives in Australia now. And I specifically asked her when we moved into this house, hey, is there anything that you can give me that's yours, that's special to you, that I can have in this house of you? And so this little item is really cute and it opens up. So it's a little treasure trove. But that's what these bookshelves are filled with. They're filled with just special items from, again, everywhere. Over here, again, I love books. Books as decor is one of my favorite things. It's such a good filler. And I specifically love to find books that are really old. If I can find them with inscriptions, that's even better. I actually even have a photo. This is a photo of Caleb Diedrichson. He was the original owner of this house in 1926. So him and his family lived here for several years. And I looked high and low on the internet to find a portrait of him because I felt like it was really special that we paid homage to the original people that designed this house and lived here and created memories. So something about me is I love a deal and I do love secondhand anything. I'm a huge Facebook Marketplace shopper. This mirror is probably my proudest find. We found this just a couple hours away from us here in Michigan, and we had no idea how large it was when we picked it up. You know, they give you dimensions for these things, but we showed up and this was just the most beautiful, giant antique mirror. I was so excited. I paid $70 for this, and it is honestly my prized possession. If the house is on fire and I could only take one thing, it would be me trying to lug this out of this house. So the chess set here is actually because I have a goal of learning to play chess. I grew up with my dad and my brother, always playing into the wee hours of the night, and I never truly understood it. Josh knows how to play, so my 10-year plan is that he'll eventually teach me. I'll eventually have the patience for him to teach me. So it's here in case anyone comes into the house and plays, or if I get motivated one day. When we moved in, this house was in pretty much immaculate shape. The previous owners and their family had been here for over 40 years. And actually part of the selling point is that they had put in over $200,000 worth of renovation in that 40 years. They completely replaced the windows. They did a full kitchen refresh. They added in a shower upstairs. So things that this old home just needed to be updated over time. So we were in a great scenario where we were able to come in and truly just put our stamp on it with decor. We definitely have plans longer term for some smaller changes, but honestly, this house was ready for us. So the fireplace was one of the very first selling points of this house. This house has so many selling points personally, but this is the original plaster fireplace to the home. We actually have the original kind of mock-up and build of the house, and it showcases the fireplace, and it's just absolutely stunning. The detail in this wet plaster work is incredible. There's actually a crest here. It's kind of faded out, but I don't know for sure. My hope is that maybe that crest is from the original family. I hope it has a special meaning to that. Since I don't know, I'm going to claim that this is a special crest. But this fireplace is truly just a work of art, and it's one of the first things that everyone talks about when they come into the house. And it's wood burning, although we actually transitioned it to gas as well, so we can do both in a pinch. And it's just one of my favorite pieces. And we put up the frame TV here. Actually, this was a bit of a strong discussion between my husband and I when we identified this home and that we were going to purchase it. I told him there was absolutely no way we were putting an ugly black TV on this mantle. It was either going to be art or it was going to be nothing. And so the frame TV was actually a great middle ground for us. I can change the art to whatever I want, and it looks like a painting. And it's also one of the things that people walk in and say, oh, I love that piece of art. And it's always so fun to let them know it's just a TV. So this is a brass firebox. Fun fact, when we moved in, there was one almost identical to this. It was the previous owners, and I begged them to sell it to me. They said no, though. It was a family heirloom, so I totally understood, but I was absolutely inspired by what they had here, and it was filled with firewood, and I thought it was so beautiful. So I went online, and I found a secondhand one and had it shipped to me, and I just absolutely love it. We don't actually fill it with wood. It's just filled with random things that I need throughout the house, but it's a great hiding place for kind of your junk, but it's absolutely stunning. It's vintage and I absolutely adore it. I mentioned that I love everything equestrian and just Western, and it's adorned with horses. So it felt really right for us and for our home. So something about me is I will find a way to make anything art and or decor. These are the original blueprints to the house. So something really special about this space is we are the 5th owner of this home, but every homeowner has passed down the original deed and the original blueprint. So I think it's so special that everyone thought it was worth it to keep these in good condition. They were just in a plastic bag when we took the keys to the house, and I thought, why not make a bouquet of it in the home? And so every once in a while we'll pull these out and show them to friends or family, but I thought it was just a fun decor piece. Again, I love anything that you can repurpose. I love giving new life to items that maybe were just stuck in a basement prior. And so something like this is really special to me, and it's definitely a talking point for sure. Another talking point actually is my art right over here. I, for some reason, have an affinity for finding art of people I don't know. I find it fun, it's interesting. I like to jokingly give these people names. And I found this piece actually while on a work trip. in Louisiana, and I found him at an antique store, and he's just so fun. I call him the radiator art because, well, what else are you going to put on top of a radiator other than a great piece of art? And so I call him George. Don't know if that's his real name, but he's special to us. The frame is absolutely stunning, and I'm just drawn to beautiful things, and I'll find any place to put them. One of my firm beliefs is being able to mix new and old. So my house is full of antiques. It's full of vintage decor and items, but a lot of my furniture is actually brand new. And so in this case, we were able to combine, a secondhand vintage stunning rug with newer furniture. These green chairs are from West Elm. They are a crowd favorite. They're the perfect shade of green. And because green is a neutral to me, I thought, why not have green furniture in my home? And the velvet is so much fun. And I do love just mixing those different textures. And then I added in white boucle swivel chairs, which we love because with this being a TV, it's easy for someone to just swivel, whether they're in conversation or we're watching a game or something together. I got a lot of questions when asked why am I going to put white in my home. We have a lot of family members with kids. We have a dog, but thankfully nothing insane has happened. They've been protected and we love it here. It's just, again, I like mixing new and old. I like the fact that this furniture feels a little mid-century modern, but everything around it feels very classic. It feels traditional. It feels English country. It feels like a Tudor, but it still meshes really well together. And that's why I am such a believer that you can do whatever you want in your house. If it makes sense for you and it feels good to you, go for it. A few other really special items in this room and that go throughout the house as well are these original wood floors. They creak. They are definitely not quiet at all, but something about that is just so charming. They also kind of wave. There's a little bit of movement here, but again, with an old home, kind of the beauty of it is the imperfections, and those imperfections make me feel that I don't have to be perfect in any way, shape, or form as well. So the original wood floors were something that we absolutely fell in love with immediately, and then additionally, the crown molding. So all of these walls, you'll notice, have a really thick texture. So it's all wet plaster, and the same for the crown molding. And the crown molding goes throughout most of the bottom floor of the house, and something that's just really special to us and immediately draws your eye. And I'm just so, so grateful we get to live here. I like to describe my design style as kind of a cluster of things. I don't feel like our home is just one style. I very much leaned mid-century modern in our last house, and so we still have a lot of those pieces here, and I still find a lot of inspiration from mid-century. But we're in an English style Tudor, and I thoroughly believe in letting a house lead you as far as your design and what you put into it. So although I had some mid-century modern aspects, I started incorporating a lot more traditional, a lot more English country, a little bit of French modern because I just love the way that looks. Also some Western. I am very drawn to equestrian for a couple different reasons. One, I grew up with a horse, and so that's part of my childhood. But two, my mom is actually from England, and so a lot of her personal style comes with me as well. So it's definitely a mix. So when someone asks me that, I give them the full list of things they will find in my home. There are so many things I love about this house. I have a mile-long list. However, I would say my top two, the original plaster fireplace that's behind me, this was an instant selling point. You see it the minute you walk into the house, and it is so intricate and unique, and we just absolutely fell in love. I love a fire. It is so cozy and warm, and I just love any scenario where you can just feel your most comfortable at home. But I would say second is our sunroom, and it's such a unique space. This was actually an addition to the house in the 50s. It is a fully temperature controlled room with indoor and in-ground garden beds, meaning I can grow fruits, vegetables, or just tropical plants in any season in Michigan, which is pretty unheard of considering we have pretty harsh winters here. But it's stunning. It is full of plant life. It came with plant life when we bought the house, and we've incorporated our own as well. I have a small lemon tree. I'm growing figs. I'm so in love with this space, and it's just so special to us. Now let me walk you into our sunroom. So welcome to our sunroom. Got a little step down here. This was actually an addition to the house. So this was put in the late 40s, early 50s. Actually, an article was written about this room specifically in the Detroit Free Press because it was the first of its time. These tiles are heated, and so that is how this room stays warm. We've got a full thermostat that just controls it, and it's honestly just such a special space. So in addition to the heated tiles, this room has an entire, I would say about 4 to 5 feet of in-ground plant beds, meaning I can plant things literally into our ground inside the house. It's just the coolest space. I love plants. In our last house, we had a sunroom, just a traditional room with lots of windows and lots of light. And so when we saw this was one of those moments where I said, okay, this house is for me, because there's a space where I can put my plants and they're going to thrive. And wanting to make this space really green and lush, we added a few things. So first, we added a full wall mural of a just stunning mountain landscape. That was actually my husband's idea. That was one of those ideas that I said, hey, that's really good. Let's do that. And that just adds to the green space. And then we also painted the ceiling green as well. And that's something that was really special to me. It was just original pine, just white beadboard. And I wanted it to feel a lot more cozy, a lot more warm. And I wanted to play off of the green plants in the room. And then we've added just some kind of fun, funky things in this space. You'll notice a horse saddle behind me. I mentioned earlier, I had a horse growing up. I love equestrian. I wanted to be a professional, like, cowgirl at one point in my life. Didn't happen, but I like to pay homage to things like that. So this is one of my very trusty Facebook Marketplace finds. I love displaying it. It's just, again, one of those moments that feels special to me because that was my childhood, and really, really good decor. But other than that, this room is just full of plants. I find them everywhere. Some of these came with us from our move from Texas. A lot of them, though, I found at local nurseries and plant shops. And we've just added pieces that were unique and special to us. So secondhand, these were secondhand club chairs from a place called the Detroit Club, which is a 100-year-old plus institution here in the Metroplex. And even items like our green sofa. Again, green is a neutral for me, and so putting more and more green in our house just felt right, and it felt especially right for this room. This is fairly new. This is from one of my favorite companies, Interior Define, and they make fully custom furniture, but just at affordable pricing. And so this is kind of our landing space for all things recreation, whether a football game is on, whether it's going to be a movie night, or we're hosting an event, because hidden behind these doors is another TV. And what's really cool about this, so when this room was built, this used to be a wood burning oven. There's a full fireplace here that goes outside. They had burners, and the family that was here used to grow fruits and vegetables in the ground and then cook them here. And this was their kind of all season room. And somewhere in the probably 60s or 70s, it got transitioned into just a TV space, but it's really unique and fun. And it's one of those things that is so special to this house and just interesting. And I'm a fan. We love it. I definitely deal with all the normal plant parent things, even though these plants are in the house. So things like pests they just come with the territory, and it's something I've known for several years now. I've battled with several years now. That's kind of one of the beauty of having all of the live plants in one space. It's kind of contained. But yeah, I struggle. The in-ground beds, weeds grow here. I literally pick weeds in this room. It's kind of hilarious, but just such an interesting and unique space. So the light above the dining table is a reproduction of a Tiffany-inspired chandelier. It has interesting grapes and just beautiful tones, greens, of course. This was a Facebook Marketplace find. Again, it's just like my go-to, and it was so affordable. I think the owner gave it to me for $20, and I just couldn't say no. And I just think it's such a beautiful addition to this space. It looks like it would have already been here. And that's what I love doing in our house, is finding pieces that feel like they were here from the beginning. And it's not, odd or different, but it just feels right in the space. Something else that kind of felt right in the space is our antique armoire. We actually purchased this from the previous owner. This used to be their TV wardrobe in the main living room, and we thought it was such a beautiful piece and we wanted it for ourselves, but something that we repurposed and also hid something interesting in. This is my husband's liquor cabinet. So this is one of the reasons why we usually host parties in this room. He's a huge collector of whiskeys and tequilas, and we just thought this cabinet was the perfect place to display them. And it's just such a fun talking point, and it's always hilarious when we open this up and people are very surprised. I am a tequila gal. My go-to cocktail is actually margarita. I pride myself on making a delicious margarita, and that's probably from my Texas roots. It's just ingrained in me. Tequila Ocho is my absolute favorite tequila, and so we always keep that on deck. But my husband is a big whiskey drinker. He's a classic whiskey with a rock and just very simple man, but not so simple because he collects so many different whiskeys, and it's kind of insane how many different, brands and styles and flavors are out there. And so you'll notice there's a big collection of things here. His absolute favorite is called a Midwinter's Night Dram. It's incredibly hard to find and it's incredibly expensive. So when he can't find it, it's honestly really good on our pocketbook. So I do a few different things professionally. Full-time on my LinkedIn, I am an optometrist recruiter for a company called Warby Parker, and I've been with them for a little over 9 years and several different capacities, and have moved around with that company, different states and cities as well, and absolutely adore it. However, in the last 2 to 3 years, I've actually added virtual interior decorating to my resume, truly through my content creation. So I look at this house as my canvas, and I started sharing it regularly online in 2020. I started a blog, and I just wanted to share what my passion was, which was decorating my home. I grew up with a mom who decorated and redecorated our house all the time. She was an interior painter, and I find a lot of inspiration in the fact that you can just change your mind and change your space and get something new and fresh out of it. So I consider myself having three different careers: the recruiting, the interior decorating, and then also the content creation. Let me show you our dining room. Now, welcome to our dining room. It changes pretty significantly when you walk in here. It gets a lot darker, but this is just such a special space. So when we moved in, every room in the house was kind of a pale yellow. This room, however, I just envisioned color washed in green, and it turned out beautiful. But funny story, my painter very much thought it was going to be an awful idea. And pretty much everyone did. My husband was concerned, my in-laws, they said, "Are you sure you want an entire room of dark green?" And I said, just wait, guys. And it's just a dream. We did the same exact color top to bottom. So we did flat walls and ceiling with a high gloss trim, and that just made that wet plaster molding really pop. And I love the way it looks in this green tone. And then I paired them with monotone velvet curtains to give the room a bit of a royal feel, but also to just really dive into that green feeling. Everything in this room is special for some reason. I actually saw a picture of someone else's house where they had a easel with an antique piece of art, and I immediately said, I need to recreate that. And this was an estate sale find actually here on the island when we first moved in. It was a house just a couple of streets over, and they had this stunning piece, and I had to have it. And something else that's actually really special is these metal boots. I got these at a store. They're about 25, maybe 30 pounds. And again, just kind of paying tribute to my Texas roots. And I love finding pieces like that. I love finding pieces that are just special and unique. You can definitely stub your toe on this thing. It's kind of a hazard, but they're beautiful, so we keep them. And these pieces of art, we actually purchased from the original owner. One of their very good friends who unfortunately had passed away sketched these. And these are all different spaces, churches here on the island. So kind of, again, paying that tribute to where we live and keeping it local if we can. Now, as far as furniture, really, again, I love mixing the new and old. This is a full West Elm set that we fell in love with. We actually had this table in our last house. It's mango wood. It feels right in here. It's good enough space for when we're hosting, but it's also, I like that it kind of adds a modern flair to this room that feels very old. You know, with the older chandelier, we have an antique curio cabinet that we also purchased from the previous owner. They had such amazing taste and such great pieces, and so we were really lucky that they were willing to pass some of those down to us. This piece is really, really special. A good friend of mine, Heather, she's an artist, and she very wonderfully gifted us this beautiful portrait of the front of our house. And it was something that this house is just so special to us. The way we found it, how we're here. I mean, I've never felt more at home anywhere than I am in this house. So I wanted to make sure we had something to hold on to should we ever leave for any reason. So that is a really special piece to us. But overall, this room is just one of my favorite places to host. It's warm, it's cozy, it feels really elevated and elegant, but you feel like you can still be yourself here, which I love. And then lastly, one of my favorite pieces, this is a faux willow tree. I get so many questions about this. This is from a brand called Nearly Natural. As much as I love my real plants, not every room in this house gets great light. So I'm a big believer in faux. If you can't do real, go faux. Why not? So this tree was absolutely stunning, and they so graciously sent it to us, and it's just so perfect here. So when it's not Christmas and we don't have Christmas trees, our big willow is the star of the show. When burning candles and kind of having a scent here in our house, there's two scents that I consider pretty signature. Currently, because we're still kind of in winter, I'm still burning fir, like fir garland, because we're surrounded by all of these pine and oak and just fir trees. It feels kind of holiday still, but my signature scent is called Baltic Amber from Vallespa. It is still a little holiday. It's a little sweet. It's a little vanilla, but it just is so calming. It's my absolute favorite season. I feel it's so much peace during it. So we're gonna burn the noble fir a little bit longer. So I'm gonna very carefully move this candle, and I'm gonna show you the coolest chair ever. The chair was also a Facebook Marketplace find, and it serves a couple different purposes. So I'm 5'3", pretty short, and we've got some tall cabinets in our kitchen. I discovered this chair. It's called a library ladder chair, and it was intended for you to be able to climb up and get books off of tall library bookshelves. This converts into a ladder. And so I use this in our kitchen because there's cabinets I just can't reach. And I thought, what a great way to be able to have function, form and function in one, because I didn't want one of those little ugly step stools sitting in my kitchen. And this is so incredible. It's about 90 years old. I found it from someone here on the island that was selling it. And she was so excited I knew what it was and that it was gonna go to a good home. And it's such a fun conversation piece. Truly, one of the moments where you truly get form and function in one. It's so, so cool. I am a more is more type of host. I love having people in our house. I love welcoming them in and making them feel at home and feel like they're in a really elevated, elegant space, but also casual and just easy. So I actually host a once a month ladies wine night, and that is one of my favorite things. I invite all my girlfriends over. The table is full of charcuterie. Everyone brings a bottle of wine to share, so we're tasting anywhere between 8 and 10 different wines, and it's kind of an all-night event. It's so much fun. But outside of that, we love to host things like birthday parties. We'll host a holiday cocktail party, Super Bowl, really anything as an excuse to get people to our house, we will do it because we love wowing them with great food and great drinks. So this is an antique fireplace screen. It's actually a little bit too small for our fireplace, which is why it's not there, but this was my mom's and she graciously gifted it to us. She knew it would look great in our house, and so I absolutely took it. And this is a good example of kind of a unique piece of art. I love finding things that you can use to display in your home that are maybe not what it's intended to do. But for me, I mean, the brass picture here is just so stunning. It's really unique, and I love having it here. It's kind of random, but I love it. So our marble top bar cabinet here is something that was originally a contention point between my husband, because he had to drive 6 hours round trip to pick this up. Like I said, when you find something secondhand that's special, especially a deal, like I just can't say no. We got this for $100. It was when we were living in Texas, and it was 3 hours there and 3 hours there, 3 hours there and 3 hours back to pick it up. And it is just absolutely stunning. It's totally imperfect, which again is something I love about old homes and old things. They tell a story. And so this houses a lot of our bar tools, wine bottle openers, a few extra decor pieces that I don't have room for. But this is where what we use to display some of his favorite whiskeys, some antique bar glasses I found. this giant bust of David that I recently picked up about a month and a half ago, and it was just so unique and different. And I said, well, why not? You'll notice I actually have a lot of like statues and busts around the house. I just think they're such a beautiful piece of decor. Another thing that I am a big collector of is lamps. Our house doesn't get a ton of natural light, so lamp o'clock is very real here, and I will put a lamp anywhere there's an outlet. This lamp is a stunning vintage piece that I got for a steal, and I love pairing it with, again, secondhand shades. I actually, anytime I go to a thrift store and there are lampshades, I'll usually buy them and store them in our basement for the inevitable, which is when I bring a new lamp home. I would definitely say my personal style is very much collected. I'm a firm believer in bringing things into your home that are either special to you or that you just find special in general. I love mixing new and old, so antique and modern. I am a huge vintage and antique shopper. I love an estate sale, I love a thrift store, I love an antique mall. And what I love about items like that is they come with a story. It may not be yours, but it was someone else's. And I love that you can give an item like that a second, third, or fourth life. And so when people come into my home, they can expect a lot of unique, a lot of likely old things that come with some type of story. And some of them are my story, my husband's story, and then stories of people we don't know. But I think what I love about a collected style is it also makes you feel very cozy, very at home. And that was always my goal, is that when someone walked into my house, they immediately felt warm, they felt welcomed, and there were so many things around that draw their eye that they could inquire about. And I love talking about the things I bring into my home. So when it comes to interior decorating and how me and my husband work together, we actually work together really well. I would say I take about 90% of the role here. I do a lot of the sourcing myself, the decorating, kind of the planning, things of that sort. But he has a great eye, and I ask his opinion almost always. He'll even go sourcing with me to antique shops. He's usually the muscle to drag everything out of the store and get it into the house for me, which is absolutely necessary. But I'm really thankful that he has complete faith and trust in me. There's been several times where I've made decisions and he for sure thought it was gonna come out awful. And then I did it, and he apologized later. Next, let's go check out the breakfast nook. We joke that this is kind of like our own little diner. It's right off the kitchen, and this was original to the house. So this was actually part of the original blueprint. These benches and the table are bolted to the floor. We definitely have plans long-term to maybe restain it or cover it in fabric because I want this to be really quaint and cozy. But I added the green curtains because we love green in this house, new lighting, and then, to no one's surprise, more equestrian inspired art. So I have saddles behind me here, horses here, and then from there we just added some cozy features like pillows, a few flowers. This lamp is actually really special. This is another Tiffany inspired lamp, but the previous owner made this. He made it originally for his sister, got it back, and they were just not planning on keeping it. So we asked when we purchased the house if we could purchase it along with it. And that's one of those really special pieces because it's part of who they were, and they were here for such a long time. So I love that we can respect that. But this is our nook. And so this is our kitchen. The kitchen was actually redone in 2015 after the house experienced a little bit of a flood. And they did a great job. They put really high quality cabinetry and counters in here. I definitely plan to put my own stamp on this. I have always had a dream of having green cabinets. It's gonna be a very green house. But one day we plan to update it ourselves. This area was really cute though. This is a little coffee bar. This is where we keep all of our specialty glasses, and this is where we start our day every morning. I actually even went as far to put special art sort of in here. And I had both my mom and my mother-in-law handwrite me and my husband's favorite recipes, and we framed them. And so that was really special. Like, again, I love adding pieces of your family members into your home, even if it's just a handwritten chicken and dumpling recipe. But as you go into the rest of the kitchen, it's a pretty good size for the house. Granite countertops. I try to add art wherever I can. So there's a giant antique painting over here that could feel out of place, but for me, it just feels just right. We actually have a lot of wildlife on the island. There are ducks and swans and Canadian geese everywhere. And there's a male and a female duck that tend to come on our property very often during the winter. My husband and I jokingly named them the Quacksteins. And so one of my friends who's an artist painted one of our Quacksteins for us. And so that's really special and fun. But we spend a lot of time in this space, specifically my husband, as he is the cook in the house. I spend a lot of time drinking wine and emotionally supporting him while he's cooking. But we're proud of it. Got a little bit of antique plates up here, and honestly, just such a beautiful bay window that looks out to our neighbor's property, but also to a few of the pine and fir trees in our property. I have definitely always loved interior decorating. I remember as a child, my mom giving me a lot of leeway of what I wanted my room to look like. At one point, it was purple and green walls with a floral border in the center and matching bedding and a matching rug. And then at one point, I wanted to completely change it. And she always gave me that freedom to say, okay, my style has changed. Let's adjust your space so it feels like you. And I think that really kind of kickstarted my thought process of design and decor, and just making your space feel like you is so important. And I love being able to do that in my space. And so it's been really fun to also kind of slowly help other people do that as well. I think what can really bring a home to life is being intentional about what items you're bringing into it. So for me, what gives my house a soul is bringing in items that are special to me, special to my husband's family, to my family. Even if you're bringing in something that has no connection to you, but it gives you joy, it excites you. I think that's what really can bring a home to life. It could be a piece of art on the wall. It could be a collection of antique books. It could be a plant. I'm really big on plant life in my house as well, not only for the oxygenation, but also it feels lively in here. And so I think it's subjective. You know, one of the things that I would say bothers me about the design and decor industry is that there's so many rules. And I think those rules are meant to be broken. I think you do what makes the most sense for you in your home. And if you follow your gut and what you feel is right, your house is going to be the best space for you, and it's going to feel like you, and it's going to come alive. Now, before we go upstairs, I want to give you a quick peek into our powder room. It's one of the few places that we actually did a DIY in this house when we moved in, and then I'll show you a little bit about the hallway. Follow me. So my husband and I joke that this is our Harry Potter bathroom because it's so tiny. And when we moved in, it was a little bit lifeless. It just had gray walls. It does have the original tile floors though, so we wanted to make it a little bit bolder while also trying to keep some of the original details to it. And when I say a little bit bolder, we went very bold. I'm always inspired when I go to great hotels or restaurants or museums and they have beautiful bathrooms. And so I wanted that for us. I wanted our guests to have a space that they were just wowed when they walked into. The wallpaper here is very bold, and surprise, it's green. We went with a striped, kind of striated pattern. This is from a company called Mind the Gap, which is UK based. I end up finding and loving things from the UK, and I feel like that just, again, pays homage to this home and kind of the style it was created in. So we went really bold with the wallpaper. We painted the trim and the ceiling high gloss black because we wanted it to feel moody and interesting, but somehow it still worked really well with these white and gray original tile floors. That was just something we didn't want to disturb. And so for me, it took a little bit of time to find patterns that would work well together, but they work really well. And also, we have some fun pieces of art in here. There's a piece of art of someone who we don't know who it is. I named him Francis, and I joke that he is the bathroom attendant. He creeps everybody out, and that's kind of the hilarious part of it, so he's not going anywhere. Now, I really want to show you this hallway because I don't consider myself a DIYer. I've done small projects. I'm not the gal that's going to be knocking down walls, But this is something I did myself. So these walls were, again, that kind of just soft yellow beige that the whole house was. We had them painted white, and then I stenciled this myself. I really wanted wallpaper, but all of our walls are thick, heavy plaster, and they're just not conducive to wallpaper in general. So I spent about 10 hours. I started one night at 5 p.m. and just went through the night stenciling this wall. And it was so much fun to complete that project, step back and say, I did that. But what's really special, in my opinion, is that it looks like it could have been here the entire time. It has that very vintage feel. It feels a little French country, which is, again, one of those fun things for me to like just introduce different styles into our home. And so I not only added the stencil, but then I added a few pieces of art as well. So I have these really stunning antique brass candle sconces. And then this is a maple leaf of a tree that fell on our front property. So shortly after we moved in, there was a 100-year-old tree out up front. It was so beautiful. It was, again, one of those many selling points for us. And unfortunately, it fell in a storm. So after it had fallen, I went and I found the largest leaf I could, and we framed it as just a memory for what was. We do plan on replanting, which I'm very excited. That's going to happen this year. But I thought, what a special moment, and something that the previous owners could find special as well, because we actually have a really good relationship with them. Previous owners, they moved probably 5 streets away and actually pop by pretty often. So it's really special for me when I get to welcome them in the house and show them things that are memories of theirs. Now, let's go upstairs. Now this is our spare bedroom. This was a fairly recent project for me. This room was very green, lime green when we moved in. Child's lime green, to give you a visual. And I knew I wanted a space for when we had family or friends stay with us where they felt really cozy and comfortable. And so we originally painted it white, just give it a fresh slate. And then I very quickly realized I wanted something a little bit darker. And a friend of mine used this exact color in her living room, and I was so inspired. It's called Chestnut by Benjamin Moore, and it's in a matte, which you usually don't see in rooms. And it is just the most stunning and rich maroon. It's, depending on the time of day, it feels purple, it feels brown, and I just love the transition this color gives you. And so I wanted to incorporate pieces into this room that, again, that felt like they could have always been in this house. I wanted this room to feel a little bit older, very vintage. So this is just a brand new, just online metal bed that had some details to it that I felt were pretty timeless, and paired it with this just insanely stunning golden velvet bedspread. It is so luxurious and it's so fun. It's from West Elm, and I thought it paired perfectly with the color of these walls. And so we added a few special pieces, one being the portrait of our dog. Our dog's name is Kona. He's a Shiba Inu, and this is Colonel Kona. And we thought that would just be fun and whimsical, but of course special to us. And then I added even more special pieces. So in my love of tapestries, I found this online, and the woman I purchased it from, she lived in Ohio, so just a state away, and she so graciously offered to ship it to me, and she gave me such a deal for it. It's so huge, and I feel like the colors pair perfectly with the color on the wall. And for this room, what I did is I picked the wall color first and then started adding in pieces from there. And what I love about that is that gave me my balance, my foundation for the space. We picked up an antique chest, also on Facebook Marketplace, and a good friend of mine actually went to an estate sale and snagged these lamps. And after seeing this room, she came to me and said, "These belong in here, so I'm gifting them to you," which I so appreciated. And so this room is just, it's special. It's different. I don't know anyone else that has a spare bedroom like this. And we added in just a few other fun details. This is a wooden duck from Josh's grandmother, and she gifted this to us. And this chair, actually, I was given this for free from the woman that sold us the chest. She had it in her garage and said, "Hey, this will look really, really good next to it if you want it." And so we took it, which was awesome. And what's really nice about this space too is, Even though it's the spare, it has a balcony as well. And so our guests have access to outside. If the weather is nice, they can go sit on the patio and drink their coffee. So get some sunshine and outside of the really cozy, dark, kind of almost cave-like spare bedroom. When choosing this color, I knew that it was all or nothing with a color this rich and this vibrant and just kind of breathtaking. So I wanted to completely color drench this room. So I started with the walls, then went to the trim. Shortly after, I decided the doors needed to be the same color as well. And then lastly, the ceiling, which was the worst and the hardest. But it really just made it. I think, honestly, very similar to our dining room where I did color drenched green and then paired it with matching curtains. I did the same here as well. So I found a very similar rich maroon wine colored velvet curtain. And I think it really just, it makes this room. It really makes it pop. And I love that everyone that walks in here legitimately says, wow, that feels really good for me. The word home to me really just means comfort. It means peace. I've always thought of home as your safe space, the place where you could just truly be yourself. You could let all your guards down and you had everything surrounding you that made you feel the most you. And so for me, filling a house with special items, making it in warm, soft color palettes, and just being a place where I can welcome anyone in and they get that same feeling is the best thing.
Be sure to visit our website, homeworthy.com, to discover amazing furniture, art, accessories, and more, all handpicked by our editors to help transform your house into a home. All of the items are inspired by the episodes you see here on Homeworthy. Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.